The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. It's Thursday and it's officially summer. We're excited to be here with you. We're going to be with you for the next 3 hours. I know it doesn't seem like we could have enough to talk about it for 3 hours, but we do. And we always run out of time, furthermore. But we are going to be with you for the next 3 hours talking about autism and how we can be more effective, more efficient, working with our children on the autism spectrum to help them to reach their fullest potential. Whether you're a parent, a teacher, or a practitioner, I know that that's something that you really want to accomplish. It's something that I want to accomplish. So we'll talk about a wide variety of different topics, but in particular, we're going to talk about ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis. We know it's the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism. It's effective not just for some of our kids, but if we do this properly with the right tools over the right amount of time, often enough, all of our kids are going to see progress. And that's something that's exciting for all of us. You know, on this journey, our kids are all different. Their experiences are all different. Their skills are different. Their skill deficits are different. And so it's really hard sometimes. You know, I was saying to somebody the other day that whenever I would listen, when my son was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5, I would look for information wherever I could. And if a parent was talking about somebody or if they were talking about research with a specific kid, I listened to the story to say, is this like my child or is this not like my child? And because I was looking for who had a child like mine who had something that worked. And the thing that I really love about ABA is that everybody can hear a story about someone like their child making progress. The progress is going to be different. We all have to understand that. And all of our kids are going to end up in a different place because they start in a different place. All of their trajectories are different, but progress is possible for absolutely all of our kids. And that is a wonderful thing. That's something I'm willing to spend 3 hours on. I don't know about you. And so we will talk about ABA, but we talk about other stuff too, about how to deal with the realities of this journey, the funding, the stress, the resentment that sometimes you have along the way, because that's a part of this, right? I'm sure I am not alone in this. But and I mentioned I'm a parent. I am not a BCBA, a board certified behavior analyst. I'm not an expert in autism. I'm not an expert in psychology. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a psychologist. I think I already said that, but I'm really not. But I have been on this journey for a while. My son is now 9 and he was diagnosed when he was 2.5. And what I have is a passion for helping you. I feel a deep obligation, one of those soul deep obligations that I got incredibly lucky. And I don't mind admitting that I was in the right place at the right time and ran into the right people who gave me the right information. And it was the right time in the economy, as much as I didn't think of it that way at the time, that I was able to get funding for my son to get the proper amount of ABA over the right amount of time so that my son is doing so very well. He just finished 3rd grade in a completely included class, and he's going to go on to 4th grade, and we get to talk about things. And like, I could end the sentence there. We get to talk about things, because really when he was 2.5, if you had told me that, I would have wept tears of joy, because I did not know that that was going to be possible. On that day, I think, my biggest thing was, am I ever going to be able to have a conversation with my child? And I do. I have conversations with my child every day. And the level of those conversations just gets better and better. And the kinds of things that we talk about, things that he's going to do with his life, him going to college, how he feels about things, problems in the world that he wants to solve. It's just, it's a wonderful thing. So I have that gratitude, and knowing that if I had not been in the right place at the right time or not gotten the information, I would not be here. This is not something that just, the autism fairy comes and goes, dink, and it all gets better, right? There's a whole lot of work, and my son did the work. And we, his parents, we had to fight and get the work and find the information once we got the first little thread. But I still know that regardless of all the work that we did, we still got incredibly lucky, and I have to pay that forward. That's the thing that the promise that I made to the woman who helped me to find ABA and to find ABA at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I said to her, how am I ever going to repay you? And she said, you're going to pay it forward. Well, I take that really seriously. So I'm here, and my passion here is to help connect you to the things that you need to be connected to so that you can be incredibly lucky too, so that you can work really hard to be incredibly lucky, or be incredibly lucky and then work really hard, however it melts down in your life. So please take advantage of that. If there's something that you want to know, a question that you have, please ask the question and know that I am going to track it down for you. Sometimes it takes me a couple of minutes, but I'm going to track it down for you. There are lots of different ways that you can let us know what you need. And one of the many ways, if you're watching us right now on autism-live.com, and up at the top of the screen, you'll see that it says either live or rebroadcast. If it says live, then that question box that you see next to the screen in which I'm talking is now active. Take, as an experiment, take your cursor, stick it up there, type something. You can hit enter. You can even, type JJKKK and put it up, and it will appear here on my screen. So you can ask questions, you can give suggestions, you can give advice to me about what I can do to help you. Whatever it is that you'd like to say, you can say that in real time. That's on autism-live.com. We're Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to noon. If you are watching us and it says rebroadcast, or you're watching us in any of the other places that we are available, then you can email us. That's one of the many ways you can get a hold of us. Whatever time it is where you are, shoot us an email right away, because it's the kind of thing, if you put it off, you'll forget and you won't do it, right? And this is free, all of this, by the way. The information is, and when we chase down an answer for you, it's all free. We want to be in your corner, and we mean it. So send us off an email. When we get the email, we will address your question on the next available live show, and we will also send you a typewritten response. And we have a question that came in over the night that we're going to be discussing later on today, and I'm just sorting out who expert-wise we're going to get to weigh in on it. But we will send you a typewritten response as well, so that you don't necessarily have to sit glued to your computer to see the answer. There are lots of other ways you can get a hold of us too. You can phone in. If it's during the live show and you phone in and you feel like talking in the studio with myself and whatever expert I happen to have in the studio, you certainly can. We can patch you right in. If you are shy and don't want to talk on the air, you don't have to. You can call in and we'll patch you through to somebody that you can talk to. There are people standing by waiting to talk to you. And if you call after hours, we will get back to you as soon as we're back in the office. So you can call in. You can also Skype in. I love Skype. This has been a really fun way that we've been able to connect with people, whether it's an expert that's somewhere else in the world, or some of you mom and dad bloggers that we've been talking to. If you've got an autism cause that you want to bring to light, or you're just a parent and want to say, I'm here and I'm making this work, and here's what I'm doing, then you can Skype in with us. We really enjoy being able to Skype with people around the world. It just makes me feel connected. You can also Facebook with us. We give you the question of the day, which we'll do in a minute, and you can answer the question of the day there. I really love it when you guys participate in a really public way there, because not only do those of us watching the live show get to talk about your response, but everybody around the world gets to see it. And I think that that's a really healing thing. Let's face it, we're all in different places on this journey, but we're all, there's a brotherhood, right? And sometimes the things that you guys say bring things up in me and I go, oh, I never even thought about that, or that's true. It's very uplifting, or it reminds me how much I have to be grateful for, or it reminds me how much work there is to be done. I think it's just a really wonderful, I really like it when we play well, though, on Facebook. I think it's really important for all of us to not judge everybody else's path. So that's the one thing I'll say about that on Facebook. Keep it nice. Play nice. I know sometimes that's hard, but let's try. And you can also tweet with us too. I'm new to Twitter, but really enjoying the interaction with you guys on Twitter, whether it's to the question of the day or the topic of the day, or just to write in and tell us what you're doing or what you wish we were doing or what's helping you. We like all of those things. We love, in particular, suggestions about the kinds of topics you'd like for us to cover. That's a really helpful thing. Okay, so I mentioned that you could be watching us on Autism-Live, but there are lots of other places to watch us for free as well. You can be watching us on Blip TV. This is a great way, one of the great ways to watch us if you're not watching live, so that you can pause, rewind, fast forward over something that you feel like you already understand to get to something else. You can search a topic. You want to know about toilet training, or you want to know about biting, or you want to know about how to handle some of the things that happen at school. You want to know about bullying. You can go to Blip TV, type in bullying on our channel, and it will show you which episodes we talk about those kinds of things, which is a really helpful, useful feature. You can also be doing that on our YouTube channel. So for a lot of you, that's a really convenient way to watch, and we appreciate when you're there on YouTube and when you give comments and ask questions via YouTube. We like that as well. You can also download us for free on iTunes. I think this is a really wonderful way, for those of you who have devices to take us and go. We do have the audio only portion coming. They tell me it keeps being like, oh, it's going to be this week, and then technology, things take time, and then it will happen, and then we'll have it forever. But it is coming. It's in the chute, as they say. So, and you can also be watching us on Ustream. We really want to thank Ustream for making that possible. Lots of different ways. But if there's a way that you really like to watch things and we're not doing it, would you do me a favor and let us know? Because it's probably that we don't know. Because I'm very fond of saying, I don't know half of what I need to know in the world. So educate me. I appreciate it. All right. We like to start every morning with something that we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is the time of day when I think of it as the little warm up. We take one word, one phrase, one anagram, and instead of sitting there and scratching our heads and going, okay, what in the hey nunny does that mean? We're going to demystify it for you. We're going to give you an actual definition so that we can be adding more jargon words to our list of things that we need to cover, and sometimes we poke fun of the actual definition. But then we give you a working definition, something that quite honestly is less specific, but will help you to access this term and apply it to your individual child, we hope. If you don't get it the first time, please do not berate yourself. Some of these terms, it just takes a while. Sometimes you just have to see it in practice, and you got to hear it 2 or 3 times before it makes sense. And understand that we're doing with this the same thing that we do with our kids. We're giving you the opportunity to learn it in what's hopefully a friendly and reinforcing way, giving it to you in a little bite-sized morsel. This is the same way in which we teach our children and get success. So let's take a look at today's phrase. We've been talking about prompting all week long, so now we're at textural prompt. We talked about physical prompts and we talked about model prompts already this week. So now we're at textural prompt. And we know that a prompt is something that helps our child to get the right answer, right? So take a look. A textural prompt is an extra stimulus in the form of text presented along with the discriminative stimulus, which increases the likelihood of a correct response. Now, if you've been watching the show and you've gotten used to the whole idea of using the word stimulus and the words discriminative stimulus, then this is not that hard of a definition to break down. But for most of us in our day-to-day life, we look at this and go, huh? What? That's why we have our working definition. So our working definition is using a word or phrase on a piece of paper to guide the child through the desired response. So it's like a flashcard that's got words on it that is going to help the child to know what to do. So if, let's say, for instance, we have a child in kindergarten who is very word friendly, and some of our kids are even hyperlexic, right? But we have a child that we're trying to get them to follow cues, and we know we want them to sit down, and so we might say to them, sit down, and we hold up a card that says sit down, right? And now you might be thinking, wait a second, but a kindergartner, and aren't they going to be more likely to understand what you say than what's on the card? Not necessarily, because some of our kids, their receptive language, what comes in their ears and they can decode and figure out, is so much further behind than their other skills, even their textural skills, that can be difficult for them. So for different circumstances, for different kids, there's a possibility that giving a text prompt will actually help them to get the right answer, whether it's for something like compliance, like saying sit down, or any one of 1,000 different things. It depends on the individual child. I find that fascinating that there are different things. We all have different senses that are stronger. Isn't that true? I'm a very visual person myself, and I know that. So for me, showing me a picture of something you wanted me to do would probably be faster than showing me text, but that is not the case for a lot of people. And I think it's easy to assume, but it's amazing sometimes when we find the right key for the lock, what helps a child to be able to be successful. So if your child is very text savvy, this is something that potentially is a way to help them to do the right thing. And I think of, and somebody else had recently told me this, that was the case with a family member for them as well, but my dad had a stroke, and I remember that he had speech aphasia, so he was not able to find the word to be able to say something, but he could write the word, and he could read the word. And it was really interesting, and it's wonderful to be able to laugh about this years later, because at the time it was really, really hard. But when he first came home from the hospital, he would mislabel things. Like, so, he would look at something and just a word would come out that wasn't the right word. And a lot of times it was the same kinds of words, like he called everything umbrellas. And so my mother walked around the house and she labeled everything so that there would be a Post-it note on everything to say what it actually was, because that helped my dad to be able to read the word and know, okay, that's not an umbrella, that's a clock. That's, not an umbrella, that's a glass. And it was part of his therapy because that worked for him. And he, and as I said, somebody else was saying recently that it was the same thing with a relative of theirs. So don't discount the possibility that a textual prompt might be something that helps your child. Again, a prompt is something that we do to help the child to get the right answer. If we go back to our actual definition, an extra stimulus. So if I'm saying sit down, but I'm showing the word sit down, that's my extra stimulus that goes along with the discriminative stimulus, which was sit down. Me saying the word was the actual discriminative stimulus, but this is an extra stimulus, the word on a card, which increases the likelihood of a correct response. We always want to be fading prompts, right? So that eventually we get to the point where we just say sit down and the child does it. We don't hold up the text. But when we need to, we want to use prompts because it helps the child to get to the point where they've done the right answer so they get the reinforcement. And we know in ABA that in order for us to get any behavior to happen over and over and over again, it has to be reinforcing. So how do you teach something? You got to get them to do the right response at least once and reinforce them, right? But usually you got to do it more than once. And we help them to get the right response with prompts. Okay. So there is our actual definition, our working definition. We also always have a question of the day for you. And our question of the day, it's usually meant to get you thinking and participating, but also to educate all of us. Because I always say, you guys know things that I haven't even thought of. So we appreciate you taking the time to answer the question of the day. It's very topical because it's summer. So what is your child excited about in the summer? What is it that really just is so reinforcing? I know in the past, a lot of you have said water activities are something that's really reinforcing. So I imagine in the summer that's something that's really exciting for you. My child is excited to have the time off from school and to be able to go to camp, things that are particularly reinforcing to him, and to have supposedly more time with mom and dad. It hasn't worked out that way this week, but I'm hoping starting today that it's going to work out more that way, because I'm excited about having some time off in the summer too. So I'd love to know from you, though, what is it that your child gets excited about? Because it may be something that I haven't thought of doing with my child, or somebody in Kansas hasn't thought of doing with their child. So share with us. We really appreciate it. Okay, we also always have a topic of the day, the sort of thing that we filter everything through. This week, our topic has been maintaining progress. It's so important all the time whenever we gain a skill, right? It's hard won. Our kids go through a lot. We go through a lot. Our team goes through a lot to win a skill, to really accomplish it and make it the child's own. So we need to maintain that progress. And we know that some of the key things that we have to do to maintain progress is to keep reinforcing it, right? But we have to keep giving opportunities too. And I think it's important in the summer, not just to maintain progress, but to make more progress, right? If we can do that in the summer, we have accomplished something, because our kids are behind. Let's just get real about this. Our kids are behind. So typically developing kids, they're just chugging along, and they go to school and they get a little bump. And there have been lots of tests that show this, right? And as a former teacher, I would see this every year. The kids bump along and they get to a certain level, and then summer comes, and the vast majority of the typically developing kids, they have a drop off. Not everybody, because some parents are on it and say, I'm not allowing this to happen, right? But typically kids, there's a drop off where they lose a little bit and don't maintain that progress over the summer, right? Well, our kids can't afford to do that. They're already behind. This is prime catch-up time, right? We have less services, so it's more on us, but we can do that, right? We need to make that progress and have that trajectory going straight up so that we can get our kids caught up. We can do that. We can do that, but it takes a whole lot of time and effort. But we can figure that out too, and we're going to be talking about that today, about how we as parents can help our kids to maintain progress and continue making progress. So to that end, today we're going to be talking about a compliance tip. I know we talked a lot about compliance yesterday with Evelyn Gould, but it's a great time to talk about it. I learned a lot yesterday, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But generalization tip we're going to give you today, and later on we're going to talk about social language, why it's so important that we're working on social language, how we can work on it over the summer, and some tips and tricks for things that we can do for that. So a pretty exciting show today. I feel like it's never enough time. 3 hours is never enough time, which is why we do 3 hours every day. But it's always exciting to be here with you. And I hope that you'll take advantage and participate. As I mentioned, we did have a question over the night, and I'm going to be sharing some information about that, and I'm figuring out if we can get somebody here in the studio to talk about it as well. So stick with us. We're going to be back in just a couple of minutes.
Hi, we're here today with Cecilia Knight, who is the Director of Training for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. And today I'm thrilled to have her here because we're going to talk about manding. What is manding?
Request that you would make of another person.
Why is manding one of the first things that seems to come up in most programs?
Okay. Well, a baby requests for his mother's attention by crying, or by reaching. And so it's one of the first ways that you let another person know what you need. And then that other person reinforces you by either picking you up or giving you something to drink or something to eat. And so many of our clients aren't really good at that once we start a program with them. And unfortunately, many of them engage in inappropriate manding, screaming, kicking, biting. And so what we're trying to do early on is no longer reinforce the inappropriate ways of asking and rather reinforce the appropriate ways of asking. And as we teach them an appropriate way to ask for, Mom, play with me, can I have juice, or, even more simply, help, then we see those inappropriate demands decreasing and the appropriate demands increasing, because the child's wants and their desires aren't really changing, but we're teaching them the right way to get their needs met.
So manding doesn't have to actually be spoken. It can be nonverbal as well.
And that's exactly right. They could exchange an icon. And if I bring you an icon with a cup on it and hand it to you, and you bring me a juice cup, then we've made an exchange. And so there is what Skinner would call verbal behavior. You have reinforced my request for a cup or for juice.
So when we say verbal behavior, we're not talking about vocal behavior necessarily.
That's right.
It's just that it's a conversation of some sort.
What is reinforcing to the child? The demand is evoked by the child's desire or their need for something. So early on, we may arrange the situation where I know that they're interested in the juice and they're reaching for it. I may hold it back to just say juice or ja or whatever is appropriate for that child. And then as soon as they emit any sort of response, give a high level of praise and then immediately give them the juice. But what controls the demand is that specific reinforcer. So of course, if the child asks for a juice cup and you bring something else, then they're not being reinforced with what they asked to have.
Okay. What do you want?
Good job.
You say wafer, please. Wafer, please. Good talking. Thank you, Dad. Thank you, Daddy.
Welcome back to Autism Live. It's time to talk about compliance. And boy, we talked about compliance yesterday, and I already had it on the schedule to talk about compliance today, but I don't know if you had an opportunity to watch when Evelyn Gould was on yesterday, and I said we've had a couple of rough days at home. Not horrible in the realm of how things used to be, but just, my child has been a little bit like stuck in a rut and a little bit, and it's all verbal. It's all vocal, and he's just been a little bit of a unhappy camper, which is not a fun thing, and it's not typical for my child. And there's just been some compliance issues with a couple of different things that have involved that he gets into these discussions with me. And it was so great to sit and talk with Evelyn Gould about it yesterday and say, what do you do when these kinds of circumstances? And she was reminding me that I have a tool belt. And the thing that I'm constantly talking to you guys about, but sometimes I do not walk my talk, and it's important for me to own up to that, because and she reminded me too yesterday that I had over 40 years of doing it one way. And it's not easy to switch. Even though we have these tools and we know that it works, sometimes we just don't. We need to cut ourselves some slack, have a sense of humor about it, and go, all right, I know better than that, so why am I doing that? It's human nature. But as quickly as we can, to get back to what works. And what Evelyn was reminding us yesterday is that in order to get compliance, we sometimes need to ask our children to do something that they already need to do. That sometimes we just get in a rut of our child is doing something and we're preoccupied and we're saying, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that, do this, do this, do this. And they're not doing it and it's not working. So that we need to back up a step, take a breath, back up a step and say, okay, how about if you go and do this, knowing that it's something that the child already wants to do. And what we've done is created an instant just an instant in which the child was actually compliant. Yep, they already wanted to do it. We know that. Doesn't matter. It does not matter. And so we've created a circumstances in which the child was compliant. And so now the big deal is that it's an opportunity for us to reinforce. It's an opportunity for us to compliment the child and say, you did such good. And, whether it's a hug that our child finds reinforcing, whether it's, some sort of treat for having done the thing that's right, it reminds them, oh, right. When I do this, this happens, which is why I want to do this more often. That's really the equation we're trying to get to, always. And it's hard in real life. It makes such sense, and we can draw it on a piece of paper and go, oh yeah, that makes sense, right? And yet we don't use this tool as much as we should, which is the amount that we should is all the time. I always think about when I came to work here after my son had been having ABA therapy for over 4 years. So it was not like I was new to ABA therapy. And one of the people that I got introduced here was Hank Moore, who we've had in the studio from time to time. And I fell apart when I met Hank, because Hank is one of the people that is mentioned over and over and over again in the book, A Real Boy. And A Real Boy was that pivotal thing that I read that I went, oh my gosh, I want to do ABA with my child. It was this precious thing in my life. And the people in it seemed like these mythical people that were very, very far away. And so anytime I get to meet any of the people in the book, it's just a very big deal to me. And I lost it a little bit when I met Hank. I was like, no way, are you Hank from A Real Boy? And just, you're a rock star to me. And now, I get to see Hank on a regular basis, but I think I was around Hank for 5 minutes, and Hank is he's like Buddha. But not overweight Buddha. He's, a very svelte guy, but he's very centered and very, has this very Zen way of being. He just is very calm and cool and collected and logical and caring and wonderful, has this wonderful energy. And I remember talking to him about something else, and him saying, well, when we're having problems with a child, whenever somebody says to me, we're having problems with compliance, my first question is, how often have you found the opportunity to reinforce this child? We're not praising this child enough. And I remember hearing that and going, oh my gosh, could anything be simpler than that? There's that song by Fatboy Slim, and we call it my son's theme song, because it's I Have to Praise You. Really, and I think about that whenever possible, that in order for me to have the best possible life, I have to find a way to praise my child at every possible moment. It is one of those things that you go, oh, okay, because when you do it, you feel better, and they feel better, and the world is a better place. Now, in particular today, I wanted to talk about younger children, or children that we're just starting out with on compliance, versus children that have had some compliance training, right? Because when you have a child that's older and that is already aware of the fact that when they are compliant, the lights go on and the party starts, you don't have to do as much work, quite honestly. You can ask them to do something that they already know how to do, or you find something to reinforce, and it's like the child remembers too. And I really had that moment the other day with my son that, I for a second, in 4 days of me not having my tool belt on and not using my tool belt, I had 1 second when I praised him, and there was just such a difference in that moment. And he said, oh, and I praised him, and he said, I just love it when we get along, Mom. I love it when you like what I do. How much clearer can it be? And so he was back in that groove. Yeah, it didn't last an hour, right? But if I had praised him again at the end of that hour, which I did not, but if I had, we would have stayed in the groove. And I think that that's the important thing, is that instead of going, why are they being so difficult? That's that question, there's no fruit there, right? But getting in the groove of saying, well, I'm not even going to answer that question. I'm just going to find something to praise, and then I'm going to find something to praise, and I'm going to find something to praise, and keep that going, and you won't have to ask those kinds of questions. But for the younger kids who don't already know this, we have to set up the circumstance, and we have to keep giving the opportunity until they get that concept of, when I do this, the lights go on and the party starts. So we do this in very simple ways. We're going to prompt, right? We're going to give them circumstances that they actually if they do have enough receptive language, ask them to do something that they already know how to do. But even if they don't, we're going to set up the circumstance, and we're going to physically prompt them through, or vocally prompt them through, or model prompt, or text prompt, or whatever it takes, to the point where they get it, and we're going to praise, 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 praise. And then we're going to do it again, and they get it, and we praise, 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 praise. And they do it, we do it again, and we can be fading our prompts as we go, but we need to keep setting up that circumstance so that at some point it starts to seep in. Now, different children, different things. For one child, it may take 2 times, and they go, wow, you like it when I do that. Okay, I'm going to do that because I like it when you like it. For another child, it may take 300 times, but it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it. I always like to tell the story of my friend who came to spend an afternoon with me when she was like 12 months pregnant, just, huge with baby. And she had her 3-year-old, I believe he was at the time, with her, who was just being a handful. He was just being a 3-year-old, and he was just being a handful. Now, this was a neurotypical child. But she was saying, I just don't know what I'm going to do. And she'd come over to our house so that she could lay down in a chair, our kids could have a play date, and she could put her feet up, but then it was time to go home. And she said, I just dread going home. It's just like, because my son and her son were having just a fabulous time. There were train tracks all over my living room. And she said, I'm so sorry. I know we should help you to clean up, but I just can't do it. And I said, well, of course not. You're 12 months pregnant. But that's okay. The kids will help me to clean up. And she said, my child's just not going to help you clean up. And I said, yeah, he will. He'll help me clean up. And she said, no, I've tried everything. He's not going to help you clean up. He just won't. And then he's going to throw a tantrum because he doesn't want to leave, because why would he want to stop playing trains, right? We can all understand that. And she said, and then just getting him to the car is going to be a nightmare. And getting him into the car seat is just going to be another nightmare. And I said, no, lay down. I'll take care of it. And she's like, I'm just going to be so humiliated and embarrassed because my child, doesn't do anything I ask him to do. And I knew that this was a no-brainer. It's so much easier when it's other people's children, right? So what I did was, first we modeled the behavior. So he saw the circumstance, and I said to my son, who had compliance training, and I said, hey, let's see how many of these pieces of train tracks we can put in the bin in the next 5 seconds. And so my son, who loves a competition, was just all happy and excited, and he put a bunch, and I was like, yay, you did a great job. And so I said to the other little boy, do you want to help us? I said, okay. So we modeled it again. So, we're showing him, this is how you do this, and I'm showing him that I'm praising my son for it. So now he's interested, and he's coming over because he sees this is really cool. Because I'm doing fun things with my son, and I'm tickling him because he put the train tracks in. So now this little boy, he's getting closer. He's like, this looks like it's not as horrible as I thought it was. And I said, do you want to do it? And he was a little bit skittish. So now I full physical prompted him. I said, this is how you do it. And he was like, no. And I wasn't manhandling him, but I took his hand and I said, see, this is all you have to do. I picked up the train track, and he was going, no, I don't want to. But I completely was ignoring that and gently moving his hand to the thing and let go of the train tracks that he wasn't even holding on to, but I had the claw grasp over his hand, so I let go of them, and I went, yay, you did it. And now he got the tickles, which was the thing he had come over for. And so he's looking at me going, well, but I'm confused. I didn't like that. I didn't want to pick up the things. I don't pick up toys, but I kind of like the fact that you tickled me. And I said, shall we do it again, to my son? Yes, I want to do it again. And so the other little boy, he's still, I haven't let any time pass. He doesn't know what's happening. I go, let's do it again. And I full physical prompt him again, but now he grasps it on his own. But I'm still leading the hand to the bucket. And I went, yay, you you did it, you, and I tickled, and now he's laughing. And I say, everybody ready to do it again? And this time he's like, I'll do it. Right? And so, it took two times, and me not reacting to his reticence. And now he and my son are, jamming things into the box. And my friend is sitting there with her feet up, saying, I don't know what just happened. But if I could have stood there and said with this child, really, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. If you just put it in, you're going to get something. They don't get that. We have to motor them through it sometimes, prompt them through it, tickle them, so we get to the good part. And usually it's going to take more than one time. Now, it may have taken 100 times, depending on the child and how obstinate, but it still would have been worth it. I could have done that 100 times and remember to keep counting in my head so that I'm, staying emotionally divorced from the fact that this is exhausting, right? Because I know that eventually the child's going to get it. And when they do, it's the beginning of a long road of potential compliance. I still got to keep putting quarters in this meter, right? Compliance doesn't come and stay. You got to put quarters, you got to keep reinforcing, you got to keep rewarding it. But it's such a better place to be than in the constant battle with the kids, right? But the first couple of times we do compliance, it's the most crucial. I think, it's one of those things that you got to gird yourself for and say, we're going to do this and I'm not going to get frustrated, or I'm going to take the frustration. And as Evelyn Gould likes to say, I'm going to make space for it and put it over here. It has nothing to do with what I'm doing right now. I can deal with that later. I call it the emotional divorce, that this is going and I'm really frustrated. And we are going to get really frustrated. Know that. You're going to get frustrated. And you're not the only one, but remove yourself from it. Make the space for it. Acknowledge that it's happening. You can deal with it later. When it's all over, you can take a break and stick your face in a wet washcloth and stick your face in a pillow and scream. But I you know what I got to tell you? If you work through it with your kid and you don't give in to the frustration, what happens is they learn the lesson, and you don't need to go scream in the pillow. And then you have a lot of times you might have an emotional thing afterwards where you have to, sigh and even cry a little bit to say, okay, we made the progress. That was hard one, but we made the progress. It is absolutely worth it. Compliance is everything. And for the younger ones, the first step is always the hardest, but you can do it. Okay, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about generalization. Everything we just talked about has a little bit to do with what the question was that we got through the night. I'm still working out whether or not we're going to have somebody joining us via phone or actually in the studio. So we'll figure that out and let you know when that's coming up. Stick with us.
I am grateful for Autism Speaks because they allow families like me to have hope.
They're working towards having these children live better lives.
There's a space for you. Yeah, there's a world for you, and there's a community that is behind you.
And one that has really been able to be the singular voice for people who are involved with and who care about autism.
I do have autism, but I don't let that become a disability for me. Autism Speaks is going to continue to help those who need it, and just look at all the stuff they've done so far and you will be impressed.
3, 2, 1.
And you need to support the walks. We have to raise awareness, but we also have to raise funds to do the work.
I'm grateful for Autism Speaks for one main reason, is they are allowing me to focus on the research.
The work that Autism Speaks has been doing is critical for keeping autism research on the radar screen.
We proclaimed 2 April as the World Autism Awareness Day. I'm very proud of the UN and thankful Autism Speaks.
Getting the health mandate bill passed in New Jersey particularly, we needed to be able to make an argument, not just do this because it's the right thing to do, but do it because it's cost effective.
when everyone else told me nothing was wrong with my son, I got information from a website that told me something wasn't right.
I am so proud of Autism Speaks for creating these beautiful ad campaigns, which have reached people who are not affected by autism and have also created a greater climate of compassion and understanding.
It's been really great for Bachman to have gotten involved with Autism Speaks early on. I think everybody here feels like they really make a difference.
To make sure that we generate as much money as we can for Autism Speaks so we can all solve this puzzle together.
There's no way we could have come this far without our families, without our supporters to date, but there's so much farther we have to go. And everybody's invited to join this cause. We need all the help we can get to make the difference we know we can make.
Welcome back to Autism Live. It's that time of the week when we talk about generalization, as if we didn't talk about it always, right? But especially in the summer, I think it's important that we take a couple of minutes, right, to do a lot of different things, but to find the time. I'm just seeing some answers that are being written back that we're going to be patching somebody in a little while to answer that question. But that we take the time to plan, and that's a little bit what our today is about having a plan, right? We want to teach our children to have a plan, and we're going to talk about that with our executive functions tip later on today, but it's important for us to have a plan too. And then whenever we're teaching something, whatever it is, we have to plan for something called generalization. Now, generalization is when we take a skill and we're going to teach it to the child, and our hope, though, is that the child is going to be able to not only learn the skill in the instance that we taught it, but to be able to apply this skill in myriads of different ways, right? It's making that little connection so that they have a global understanding. Because I can explain to you what a textural prompt is, right? As we did today. I can explain what it is and you go, all right, I got a little bit of an idea of what it is. But then if I was to take you and show you and take you to where a child was having therapy and show you in one room and say, here's an ideal way in which to use the textural prompt, and you'd go, oh, okay, I have a better understanding of it, right? But then if I was taking you to another room and show you, okay, here's another example of where there's a textural prompt and why you would use it in this instance, and you'd go, wow, that's vastly different than here, and you'd start to make more connections about a textural prompt. But what would be really exciting to me is if sometime down the road, whether it was 2 weeks or 6 months later, you came up with a circumstance that we had never talked about and said, I'm going to use a textural prompt here, and I did use it, and here's what happened, because then the idea of the textural prompt is now a skill that you possess and can apply it in all these different places, even places that you haven't been taught to. Wouldn't that be fabulous? Well, that's what we want to do as teachers all the time, right? And it's what we want to do with our kids. We want to teach them a skill, and we want to apply it in a circumstance here to show them this is how this works and this is how this is reinforcing. And we want to see the light bulbs go off in the child to get it. But then we want to be able to teach it in another circumstance so they can see, oh, okay, it's not always just like that. Sometimes it's like this. Oh, okay. And it's still reinforcing when I do this. Great. Then we're going to teach it in a third circumstance, and they go, wow, okay. And what they start to do is put together that it's not just the circumstance, they get the concept, right? So at some point they apply it in new and novel ways, and that's when they have generalized the skill. It's when they are able to, put it in lots of different contexts and have it work. Simple example, when we're teaching a child salutations and to say hello to somebody, and we might start it at home with the therapist. The therapist comes to the door, and the mom walks to the door and opens the door, and the therapist says hi, and the child says, hi, Rebecca. Okay, that's a salutation, and they realize, okay, I say hi to the therapist, and the therapist says, good talking, wonderful, and picks them up and throws them in the air. They go, yay, she likes it when I do that, right? It's reinforced. And So the child knows, okay, when Rebecca comes to the door, I'm going to do that. But especially our children, and for a neurotypical child, it's possible, not in all of them, that they would just generalize that then at that point, and anybody who came to the door, they would say hi. But for our kids, not so much. Sometimes they really have to be led down the path to get that. So we want to be really smart when we're teaching a lesson, that we're not just going to teach it when Rebecca's at the door, and not just the door at our house either. So after Rebecca comes to the door, we're going to have Sam come to the door sometime. And then we're going to go to Grandma's house. Grandma's now going to open the door, and we're going to teach a child, you say hi to her then too. Okay, the child starts to get, okay, when somebody comes to a door, whether either side that it's on, I'm going to say hello. Well, now you're going to do it where there's not a door. Right? Because we're not teaching them when somebody comes in the door. We're teaching them when somebody new comes into any space, we address them, right? So you're going to try it in different circumstances. You're going to take them to the mall and ask a friend who's across the mall to walk up to you in the big open mall and have the child say hi and be reinforced for it. Now the child starts to get, okay, whenever a person is around me that I haven't seen and comes near me, I'm going to say hi in some way. But we're not just going to teach them to say hi. We're going to teach them sometimes to say hi, sometimes to say hello, sometimes to say how are you, or to say the person's name and give them a hug. That there are lots of different ways to have greetings and salutations, right? So summer is a great time to be thinking about generalization, to be making a plan, because our locations are sometimes different in the summer. Maybe your child is used to going to preschool and used to the environment there, right? Well, you can take some of the lessons that you were learning in preschool, and now you can take them to the park, and you can take them to the community swimming pool, and you can take them to the birthday party that a friend is having, and try those things out in the different locations. You might be going on vacation. And so you think about, what are the things that we've been learning at home? And it doesn't matter what it is. If you've been working on toileting, and toileting's been happening at home, now you work on toileting at the beach and learn how toileting is toileting, but there are some things that are different about it at the beach. And sometimes, those things are sensory upsetting, or sometimes they're not. But applying whatever it is in different locations. And, I always think, sometimes we just do this automatically, and that's a wonderful thing. A lot of times we just, as parents, in the course of things, and we don't even realize we're doing it, we're working towards generalization, and that's wonderful when we don't have to think about it. But it's really important to make sure that at some point you are. So, and sometimes it's like, oh, well, I'm already doing that. And then it encourages you to do it just that much more. Generalization is something we want to see with every skill, and I think it's really important to have planned for it from the beginning. But if you didn't, forgive yourself, but plan for it now and say, well, we're taking a trip to the beach. And if you need to justify that in your head, you say, because we're going to generalize salutations and toilet training and personal knowledge and all these other things. And that's what we're accomplishing today. There's been a big push in classrooms lately because the research seems to support it. But generally we have state standards, and whenever a lesson is being worked on in class, there is a specific goal that is supposed to be being achieved in the classroom, a standard that is supposed to be being taught. And there's a big push in the classroom to put it on the board. What we're learning right here is X, Y, and Z. And I think that that's useful for a lot of people. I think it's useful for the teacher, and it's useful for some of the children. Not all of them, right? But I do think as the teacher, it's useful to remember what's the goal here, right? And so if you're going to the beach and okay, we're going to the beach and our goals are to have some fun and to work on generalization or to work on this, or, you get more done if you know what it is you're trying to achieve. So take a look this summer and see what are all the fun activities that you're doing and how can you use them to gain generalization in the things that you're already working on. I think you'll find that it's an easy thing to do and it has huge benefits. Generalization across locations in the summer. All right, we're going to take a break, and we're not going to take a break. I don't know why I said that. We're going to talk a little bit about the A word because it's that time of the day. can I tell you how much I love this ongoing documentary that's being made here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders? It follows a little boy, Jack Riley, who was diagnosed with autism when he was 2. He's about to be 3 at where we are in the series. And, he's been having therapy now for about, I think, 7 months at where we are in the series. And it's amazing to me, as a parent who's gone through it, to be able to watch it in this way, because it reminds me of the things that my son went through in a very general way, because all of our kids are different, right? But I want to mention that there is a curriculum that CARD has that covers every single skill that a child would need to acquire from birth up through their 9th birthday. Every single skill that starts to emerge across those years, they have a curriculum for it. It's comprehensive. It's amazing. If they were to put it end to end in terms of books, bound books, it would be humongous and take up more than a room. So there's a tremendous amount of knowledge, and it's been researched over 20 years. And that it is from those lessons when they will look at a child and see what their deficits are, and then look at their age and what their capabilities are, and then start a series of lessons that are specific for that child to build the skill deficit and to decrease challenging behavior. So, and I should mention, too, that this entire curriculum, all of those lessons, which, as a parent, that just makes me salivate. I'm like, oh, all those things that you'd love to be able to teach your child. They are all comprised. They're not in book form. You can't go and buy them in book form, but they are all available on Skills. That's exactly what Skills is. This is the entire curriculum that has an assessment that helps you and teaches the system to know which pool of lessons to choose from for your individual child and their individual abilities. So what I want you to know is that curriculum, my son had the benefit of that. And they took those different lessons that applied to my son, and that's how they taught my son. They took this same set of lessons for Jack Riley, and they picked the lessons that were appropriate for him, some of which are the same as what my son had, and some of them that are totally different, because my son needed this program, didn't need that one. Jack Riley needs this, doesn't need that, right? And these lessons are available to you as well on Skills. And they do have a special right now. You buy 1 month and you get the rest of the summer for free. So it's buy 1 month, get 2 months for free. It's kind of crazy good. And I encourage you, it's what I use at home now that my son has done with his intensive ABA. But in any case, some of the things that you're going to see them do with Jack Riley are things that are from that curriculum. And it's interesting to me now, having been through it all the way, when I was experiencing it, I just didn't quite get it. I'm going to be honest with you, that they would work on something and I would go, I don't understand how that is going to help us. I see that he's able to do it now and he couldn't do it before, and that's no small thing, but how are we going to get from point A to point Z? I could not see it. I'm a visual person and I could not see how this worked. And of course now, because we experienced it, I do see it. And it's one of those things that when I came to work here, I said, I think we got to tell parents. I think we got to let them know, because I didn't know while we were going through it, and I do now. So now I get really excited, as you can see. I go, it's amazing. It's incredible. But I love that on the A word, you're getting to see some of that. You get to see the arc. You're not seeing from A to Z, but at least you're seeing from like A to F, and you go, oh, I see how this child is now speaking in sentences and requesting things in sentences where before he wasn't at all, and then he was saying it in 1 word, then he was saying it in 3 words, and now he's learned all these labels and he's applying. Oh, I kind of get it. So I love that. But I also love that they're showing the emotional journey too of this family and what this is. I mean, this is an emotional journey. So in any case, in this episode, Jack Riley has a new therapist who has come and is working with him. And, she's not going to be perfect right out the gate, and neither are we. And I love that fact that we can show you an example of somebody who doesn't get it right, and it's not the end of the world. So take a look at the A word, and we'll talk about it in a minute.
here. Are you excited? Wow. Can I have a kiss? Thank you. He did tell Miss Miriam yesterday that he said poopies. She came and got me. We looked, there was none there, so we thought he was telling us stories. And 2 minutes later, there were.
Oh.
Wow. You did it, didn't you?
That's exciting.
She's Away's a new therapist and is having an overlap with Jessica. She will be doing fieldwork training until she is ready to independently work with a child. In order for She's Away to work independently, she must first pass a theory-based test, which is her knowledge of autism, and then second, she must pass a field evaluation, which is an overlap where she applies what she has learned.
So I want to do actions, then it looks like they're just doing maintenance right now.
Do the ones that he already has mastered.
And that's in a separate bag, okay.
Yeah. And then you would just be asking, what is the little boy doing? The boy's playing.
Okay.
It should be his answer.
Okay. Jack Riley, my name is She's Away.
Hi, She's Away.
Hi, She's Away.
Oh, very good. Give me a high five. Yeah. Okay, so Jack, what would you like to do after we do a program? Would you like bubbles?
Puzzle.
Oh, puzzle? Okay, we can do puzzle.
Since we're using the puzzle as a reinforcer, don't give it to him yet
right.
until you do the program. Because now he's like, well, I already got the
Right,
puzzle,
yeah,
so
why should I?
Why should
Okay.
it work?
What is the boy doing?
He's sitting.
Yeah! Oh, good! One sticker. What is this man doing?
What's it do?
Yeah! What is she doing?
He's kicking.
Yeah!
Hey, good job.
What is he doing?
He's Spider for city.
Yeah, that was great!
So bring out some other ones.
He's Spider.
What are they doing?
She's hugging.
Yes, they're hugging!
And are you taking data as you're going along?
Yeah.
Okay.
What is he doing?
He's sleeping.
Oh, yeah, you're so good!
He's sleeping.
So make sure you write the
The
stimuli, too.
yeah. It's like, I don't want to take too much time. And should I just be quick with it?
Yeah.
Okay. What are they doing?
He's playing.
Yeah, they're playing! Good job, Jack!
Playing a blocks.
They are playing blocks. You're so smart.
What is he doing?
He's playing.
Yeah, another one!
Playing blocks.
He's playing blocks too.
He's playing a car.
He's playing cars. That's right.
What is she doing?
He's playing.
Yeah! What are they doing?
He's playing.
Yeah, you finished! Good job, Jack Riley. Give me high fives. Can you do high fives? Yes, okay. You ready to play with your puzzle? Okay, here.
Where's the cow? Where's the cow? Oh, good job. What does he say? What does the cow say? What is he? Moo! Hi, monkey. You want a pillow sandwich? Okay, go get me the pillows. Will you show She's Away how we do your pillow sandwich?
I want to see this pillow sandwich.
Okay, ready? One. Hold on. Can you let go? Hold on. 1, 2, 3. Ah! Squash! Pillow sandwich. It's a pillow sandwich. And here we get there's a lot of opportunities for him to ask for things. Like if he wants more of jumping, more of pillow sandwiches. It's called man training.
Oh.
So what we're doing is we're giving him frames because he knows that I want and give me. But we're trying to teach him a new frame, which is can I have something. So how we prompt him is something that he really, really wants, like, pillow sandwiches or having you pick him up or something.
Okay.
And I've been prompting him with a partial verbal with just the cup, and he knows to say, can I? So, we could track that later, but this is just one of the opportunities that you can use to to do that program. Do you want more? When you say, can I? Yes, you can have pillow sandwich. Come here. Crash! Yeah! After say can.
Okay, come here, let me see you. Oh, how fun is that?
Welcome back to Autism Live, and I just love to watch a child play. And you see that it's important that we bring other people in to work on our child's team. Even in that moment, there's the moment when the new therapist is sitting there and she's going through something with Jack Riley, and the other therapist, the senior therapist, Jessica, is sitting there and watching and kind of helping along with the other therapist. But she is amazed at what, the therapist is saying, what's he doing? And even the senior therapist is amazed at the detail that Jack Riley is adding, saying, instead of just saying he's sleeping or he's playing with blocks. And she's like, yes, he is. He's playing with blocks. And I think there's something that happens when somebody new comes into the picture, that the child will, they demonstrate some generalization and they will show some things that they maybe wouldn't have shown when they were working with the other person. And so don't always think of it as a negative when your team is changing, or you're adding somebody new, or you're training them in, or you feel like you're doing an overlap, which is when there's two therapists there at the same time and you're like, oh, the funding hours that this is eating. Nah. Don't resist that, because I got to tell you, it's to your child's benefit. All of it is to your child's benefit. I know that you have those feelings. I had those feelings too, but having been through it in the way that I have, I got to tell you, it's really beneficial. So I think as much as possible, give yourself the room to say, you know what, sometimes it is deserving of this much time. My child is deserving of this much time. This is not a wasted time. This is new learning. My therapist will be better. My child's going to get an opportunity that they wouldn't have gotten before. And think of it as something that is really going to help spur on progress, because usually I think it does. And I think it's that thing too, that the more people who come in and get better trained with your child, the better possible outcome you could ever have. And it is sort of like putting something out there, because even if that therapist isn't working on your team, that they come in and they do their training with your child. It is amazing, because remember, this is a marathon, not a sprint, that there were times that people would come in and they would work with my child while they were doing their training, and then they would get assigned to another case. But then a year later, they would come back and be working with my child and being on my child's team. My child wouldn't necessarily remember them, but I would remember them and they would remember my child. Now my child's a year further, so they would have to get to know what was happening in his program then, but had a better understanding, and so they got to things quicker. So it all has payoffs. And I encourage you to look at it from that point of view instead of just the point of view of, it's somebody new in my house that I don't know and they're not as experienced as some of the other people. You can have all that anxiety with it, but it really isn't necessary. It isn't. Okay, so in any case, some of the other things that went on in there, as I mentioned, she makes some mistakes, but I love that she has a sense of humor about it, you guys. This is a sign of a really good therapist who's going to do well, that she's able to laugh about it and go, oh, and I knew better. How honest is that? How honest is that? Because we're going to make those same mistakes too. So it's important for us to cut everybody some slack, allow for people to learn and to grow. And he's thrilled. He's got somebody new to show off in front of. We had a lot of house guests over the last month, really. And I had a friend in town with her son over the weekend, and it was very interesting to watch my son, because he had somebody new to perform for, some of which was good and some of which was a little exhausting, right? Because we had some behavior that was all in the neighborhood of, let's see how far we can push mom while her friend is here. That didn't work out well for him, I have to be honest. But in any case, it's good to bring other people into your children's lives in a very controlled way. And I mentioned the other day, you've got your baby monitor, your video baby monitor, so you're watching everything. You're never just leaving your child with a stranger and trusting and hoping and believing. We don't do that, right? But we listen and we learn and we watch and we learn, and so does our child. So key for generalization, having other people. By the way, you can be watching the A Word in its entirety. watching not just this episode, but from the beginning. And I really encourage you to do that if you haven't, because to see the progress that this little boy has made is amazing. And to see how the family is coping with the stress of, this really ongoing, all the time, being on the treadmill, got to go to OT. We're back for the therapist. Somebody's in my house. Somebody's doing this. Now they got a new baby. Woo! I can't even imagine that. I can't imagine trying to get my child, my baby to nap while I've got therapists hooping and hollering with my child in the other room. That's a whole other ballpark. I'll be interested to watch how they deal with that. I got to meet them for the first time the other day. What a lovely, beautiful family. And I got to see the new baby, how beautiful she is. And I got to meet Jack Riley. He gave me a high five. He came in and looked around the studio. And what a little firecracker he is. He's just the sweetest little thing. And to see the parents who have been so wonderful in allowing cameras in to see. Because let's be honest, not the easiest thing. I always say, I'm here now and I work here, and it's a very strange thing because I'll run into people in the elevator and in the hallways, therapists who've been in my house on my worst day. You know what I'm saying? Like days when there was more dirty laundry in my house than clean laundry, when my house was completely upside down, when there was no thought of makeup, no thought of it. And, I've mentioned before on the show, we had our school district file due process against us twice. So, people serving us at the door and me crying, saying, "What's happening?" These people were in my house on these days. People get to see you in a way, and you have to allow it because it's for the greater good of your family. But it's not easy, right? And the fact that they're allowing cameras in to document it, woo, that's a level of trust and being able to understand that there's something greater to be gained than even I can imagine. So we thank them for that, because we are getting to see and learn and experience and grow through watching this lovely family on the A Word. Check them out on their YouTube channel, because it's really incredible. And by the way, we are not caught up to date. We only do one episode a week, so you can watch ahead and see even more of Jack Riley and how he's doing closer to what is real time. Okay, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we are going to deal with viewer response to the question of the day. So if you haven't already responded, now is a good time to write in, call in, Skype in, write it on Facebook. You can email us. You can tweet it to us. So the question of the day was, what does your child get excited about in the summer? We'll take a break and we'll come back to hear what some of your responses were. Stick with us.
Skills is a revolutionary web-based program that incorporates comprehensive assessment, curriculum design, progress tracking, and treatment evaluation for children with autism all in one place. Developed by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. Our approach is based on over 40 years of research on the principles of learning and their application to improving the lives of children with autism. How does Skills work? Created with speed and simplicity in mind, Skills was modeled on an easy 3-step process. Step 1. Start assessment. Step 1 begins with our intelligent assessment system, which consists of a series of questions. This assessment is essential to identifying your child's level of skills compared to their typical peers across all areas of development. This includes assessing social, motor, language, adaptive, play, cognition, executive functions, and academic skills. Every skill has an assigned age which indicates when the skill emerges during typical development. This means that each child is automatically presented only with lessons that are relevant to his or her age. Step 2. Choosing activities. It's now easier than ever to build an individualized treatment plan. In Step 2, you are presented with an individualized pool of activities that are directly linked to your student's assessment results. Each activity represents a specific skill that has been indicated by the assessment as needing to be taught. Activities are categorized by curriculum and then by lesson. There are 3 main types of skills: building blocks, fundamental, and expansion skills. Fundamental skills are necessary for successful everyday functioning. Building blocks are prerequisites to a fundamental skill. Expansion skills are non-essential skills, but may provide further enrichment in certain areas. After reviewing the activities available to you, you can quickly add your chosen activities to the treatment plan by simply checking the box and clicking the button. Step 3. Start treatment. Once you have selected and added the activities you want, you are ready to begin teaching. Skills provide you with all the tools necessary to design and manage an effective curriculum plan, such as printable activity guides that are customizable by the teacher, supplemental teaching aids including printable data sheets, teaching guides, visual aids, worksheets, and tracking forms, detailed IEP goals and benchmarks for each activity, brief and visually appealing video tutorials, a variety of treatment progress and clinical timeline charts, and lots more. And since Skills is completely web-based, everything you need is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in one easy-to-access location. Skills users even benefit from unlimited access to a support community where they can ask questions and share ideas with a skills expert. Skills is always with you.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. And it is time for the viewers' answers to the question of the day. And I've gotten kind of sidetracked here. So you guys have written in a lot of stuff, but there was something that I had a question about, so I was Googling that. And I still don't get it, so I'm going to ask questions myself. In any case, the question today was, what is your child excited about in the summer? We had a bunch of different responses. I had suspected, and I was correct, that a lot of them were going to be water involved. But somebody said swimming. Another person said buddy baseball. I'm not sure that I know what buddy baseball is, but that wasn't what I was looking up. I'll get to that in a second. But buddy baseball, I'd like to know what that is. Another person who says he can't tell me yet, but we are going to the beach and he loves the beach. What I love about this is, first of all, you're saying he can't tell me yet, so you know it's coming. But kind of, if you already know that he loves the beach, then I'm suspecting that he does have some ways of telling you and that you're working on even more ways, which is wonderful. Another person who said swimming, playing the guitar, and ice cream. Another person who said swimming, and more swimming, while I, the protective one, sits back and tries not to have a heart attack. Oh, you and I need to be friends. Because you sound like me. Another person who says swimming always, but he's loving the sand and Crystal the swing. I don't know what Crystal the swing is, but maybe Crystal and the swing. Maybe that's what it is. Another person who says no school, he hates school. And you know what? That worries me. I have to be honest, because when things are aversive, there's a reason why. And they shouldn't be aversive, things that we want. We know that in order for any behavior to be maintained, it's got to be reinforcing. So I know some of you are listening and your child hates school, and I really want to encourage you to look at why. and to figure out how to make school reinforcing, because it should be. And if it's not, that's a problem. And I think it's one of those things that needs to move up the list of priorities to fix, whether it's a different teacher, a different school. I know that it's easy for me to say and harder to do, but it's supposed to be fun. Yep, you heard me. If it's not fun, they're not going to want to do it. And we have to figure out a way to make it be fun. Another person who says amusement parks, that's very fun. I love this one. Endless hours of playing Minecraft, swimming, and building Legos. We should arrange a play date because that's a lot of what my son wants to do. Although I have to admit, while he's been in Minecraft for quite a while, right now the current obsession is Little Big Planet 2 because there is a phase where he gets to build the level. So it's like taking Minecraft and Legos and putting them together. He could do it forever, and he's very adept at it, and he makes these crazy complicated things that are very fun to look at but make me a little dizzy. So Hershey Park, I've never been there, but I've heard great things about Hershey Park. They say we went last Friday and my son has been bugging me about going back ever since. LOL. Love that. Another person who says swimming and hot dogs. There's a good combo platter. But this is the one that I was researching because somebody wrote in and said, my son is terribly disappointed. He was not accepted in the Holidays Center because of his autism. Now, I don't know what the Holidays Center is, and I was Googling that, but there are different ones around the world, so I don't know, but Holiday Center, wherever you are, I'm disappointed in you. I don't mind. I promised him we will have nice holidays with me. We will go to the sea, swimming, and walking. Way to get in there, Mom, and make it better. But what's up with the Holiday Center? You're not accommodating children with autism, and how come? I want to know. Inquiring minds need to know, right? So if anybody knows what the Holiday Center is, or if that parent is watching, I would love to know, because let's put some pressure on them. Our kids should not be excluded. Hello. If a child was coming in a wheelchair, they would turn that child down. Don't get me started. That's not right. And if it means extra staff, well, then it means extra staff. But that's totally doable. Another person who says swimming and the fair. Love that. The pool and the garden in the backyard. Absolutely love that. We have a potted garden in our backyard, but we're doing the community garden. And my son is actually really enjoying going to the garden with me. My husband, not so much. So I made my husband come with my son and I the other day, and we were pulling up carrots because I planted way too many carrots. I didn't know that you could. Like, how could you overplant something, right? Yeah, well, you can overplant carrots. Trust me on this. And my husband was saying, okay, this is a whole lot of work, and why are we doing this for a whole, like, what is relaxing about this? And I said, but it's organic. And he said, correct me if I'm wrong, but can we not go to 2 different stores in town and buy a big bag of already peeled organic carrots for like $4? And so is there a reason why we're hunched over in the heat, covered with bugs, rinsing off these carrots so we can take them home and scrub them? And I went, you're right. No more of the orange carrots. If I'm going to plant carrots, it's going to be carrots like the red ones and the yellow ones and the white ones that we can't get. Lesson learned, but everybody has to be on a learning curve. And in any case, my son, though, finds it great fun and has been giving away carrots whenever somebody walks by. Of course, he tries to sell them to him. He wants to start a business. He wants to have like a vegetable stand, child after my own heart, but I want to give them away, so we have a little bit of a conflict there. In any case, you guys are still writing in, and we love your responses. You know what, actually, too, I meant to do, we never got to the question of the day yesterday because we did not have time. And I'm looking to see, I have to go back to the other site. Bear with me. The question of the day yesterday was, how do you think Hollywood has done? Have they depicted autism accurately? And I'm not seeing it on here. I don't think we posted it. Well, and we didn't have time to get to it, so I'm not seeing it. Okay, Emily says it's there, but I am having difficulty seeing it. I see, Oh, I see, because it's over on the other side, because, you know, Facebook has changed things. Here it is. Here it is. Here it is. Okay. Thank heavens for Emily, because otherwise I would be looking endlessly and go, it's not there. Okay, so again, the question was, has Hollywood done a good job of depicting autism correctly? And the first response was no, they show the good side of it, not the real side of it. Okay, very interesting comment. Another person says, every movie with an autistic child is completely opposite of mine. My son loves affection, not just by me, but all the people he knows. He is not routine specific. He also does not speak. And I think it's really important that Hollywood at some point cover the fact that once you know one person with autism, well, you know one person with autism. Another person who writes in and says to that person, your son sounds exactly like mine, how old? And so now they're getting in a conversation. That's wonderful. Another person who just flat out says, no, they have not done a good job of depicting autism. Another person says, my little angel is in the way. I don't know what that means. He is an adult, severe autism, totally dependent, and still living with mom and sisters. I'm not sure what that meant in the reference. So another person says, no, that's the good side. How about the other side? Okay, another person who says not always, but give him a break. We all know that not one of our children are alike. I think they have generalized and stayed with what is most easily explained in everything we read on autism mannerism. I didn't realize that in Joyful Noise there was a child with autism, but they're saying here that Joyful Noise did an okay job. Another person who says, I think Hollywood sensationalizes everything. So if it's a movie, the kid is a savant. If it's a talk show, the kid has severe behavioral issues. They don't show kids like, for instance, Jack Riley on The A Word, which is why we are in denial of his autism for a bit. Hollywood doesn't show the range of kids. Another person who says, bottom line, they have to make money. That's their job, not to bring awareness. That people is our job. Parents will always be the best advocates. I don't think that you were in denial. We had the same issues. Everyone told us that our son was a boy. He would talk. He would do this. He would do that. Would it have helped to see more children like our boys on TV? Maybe. But in reality, until it lands on your doorstep, we aren't even open to it. Yeah. And they said in one of the early episodes of The A Word, they're responding and saying that they said that in one of the early episodes of The A Word, and that now the husband and wife can see it in other children and young adults. It's because we live it every day and we recognize it now. Hollywood has some work, but the fact that we are hearing the word autism and Asperger's more than before is a plus. Thankfully, we have parents like the A Word parents willing to let us into their home. Until we can get our child ABA, I have YouTube. Well, I want to ask that mom, what's holding you back from ABA? Please write in and tell us, because that's what we're trying to work on. Is it your location, so you don't have services where you are? Is it funding because you don't have it where you are? Let us know what the issue is, because that's what I want to solve. And I think it's different for different people, and I don't think we can assume that we know what it is. Another person who says, my son loves people and is a blessing to us. He'll show us many things. And another person says that Hollywood has not accurately depicted autism, not even a little bit. So an amazing array of things. I did not know. Now I'm going to have to rent a Joyful Noise. And I will be honest, it was not on my list of things to do. But I will now, to see how, because you've said that they did a pretty good job in it. Okay, there's a bunch of movies that I have not had the opportunity to see. I still haven't seen the one that's, I always get the title wrong, Incredibly Close, Extremely Loud, Incredibly Close, somewhere in the neighborhood there, you know the one I'm talking about. But I have not seen that, and I have not seen The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and I am not up to date with Touch. So I don't know what cloud I've been living on. But, there's more things to do than watch TV and movies, right? Okay, we're going to take a break. When we come back, it is going to be time for our executive functions tip of the week. Stick with us.
I'm Adele Nadowski, Director and Co-Creator of Skills. CARD e-learning is an online tool that has been developed by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. CARD e-learning is the training that is delivered to the ABA therapists at CARD to train them on the principles of applied behavior analysis and to equip them with the knowledge they need to essentially deliver the ABA-based techniques during their therapy with the children that they work with. ABA has been proven scientifically to be the most effective intervention for children with autism. At this point, even the Surgeon General has come out with a statement suggesting just that. So we know that this is something that children with autism definitely need if they're going to improve and live the lives that we're hoping that they're going to be able to live. By being able to train people on this one particular method that we know works, and to be able to have all of your staff within your school settings on the same page, it allows you to take more of a multidisciplinary approach, and there's definite consistency going on within the team. It makes sure that every person involved with that child's treatment program, including the speech and language pathologist, the occupational therapist, the teachers, the aides, all of these individuals to be able to be trained so that they can all work together effectively with the child. Parents that are using CARD e-learning can use it either to train themselves, and then after having done that they can implement different techniques with their child in order to teach new skills. But oftentimes parents might also be working either with an ABA provider, with a school, or they may have even hired their own therapist to deliver the intervention techniques. So CARD e-learning can be used either to collaborate with your school. It can also be used to train the therapists that are coming to the home of the parents, or it can also be shared with the ABA provider so that that provider can find out about it and perhaps implement it within their organization and train their staff. You can also do reporting for your organization. So you can actually look and find out which teachers are progressing, what their quiz scores are, and actually we can give you reports as well that will help you to compare the different teachers and their performances. CARD e-learning is really, really simple to use. You can log on to this as long as you have a computer, that's all you need, and an internet connection. And you can work on it any time of the day, anywhere that you're at. When you log on, you realize that right away. First of all, on the top of the page, there's a navigational tutorial. It's a how to use this page button. Simply by watching that video, it'll all kind of unfold in front of you, and it becomes extremely self-explanatory. CARD e-learning has 9 modules, and you can basically go through those at your own pace. You're going to be watching videos that are kind of like a storyboard with narration, but in addition to that, there's many different video clips of therapists actually implementing the techniques that are being described within the storyboard that you can also watch. And then of course you're able to pause, you're able to type notes right directly underneath the video that you're watching. You can save your notes, you can review them, and between each module you do take a quiz. And once you pass that quiz, you can go on to the next module. And then after you complete all of them, you have a final exam. And by completing the final exam and passing with a score of 85% or better, you will be given a certificate of completion. Let me show you how easy it is to use CARD e-learning.
Welcome back to Autism Live. In just a second, we're going to talk about our executive functions tip of the week. But want to let you know, we had a question in the night. I'm going to read it right now, and I'm going to address it a little bit as a parent. But we are going to have Evelyn Gould come back into the studio tomorrow at 10 a.m. and to give us a more expert opinion about what, but I'm just going to, as a parent, right? Just my opinion. So the question was, and this person will also get a response via email from me and from Evelyn as well. So question was, my question is if you could give any advice or techniques to helping my wife keep her cool during the difficult times, with our son. Our son is almost 5. He was diagnosed as having spectrum disorder. His biggest challenges seem to be speech delay and controlling his excitement in public situations, and frustration from not being able to communicate his feelings to us or others, I feel. My wife and son have seemed to hit a wall with each other when they both seem to get aggravated. When this happens, my wife usually calls me in to deal with him, or she loses her temper and doesn't deal with the situation properly and yells at him to take a timeout or etc., right? With the unnecessary yelling and avoiding the situation by turning it over to me, I feel has been leading to another bigger problem between them. It seems like my son is beginning to lose respect for his mother's authority, which is just leading to a vicious cycle. Okay, so it says, your help is greatly appreciated. All right, so a lot of different things in there, right? And there's some good news from some of the things that I'm seeing in there, in that, first of all, what a great dad. Okay, that you're seeing a problem, not sticking your head in the sand. So right out the gate, I want to tell you, and not everybody would, right? There are some, and we all have experienced some aspect of this, right? And sometimes it's the dad who's getting frustrated, or you might cycle through as a couple where I know in my house, we do that. Sometimes it's my husband who is just had a little too much between work and everything else that's going on. And so his patience is a little short. And then a lot of times, folks, it is moi. And it certainly was moi the other night. So I can really, really relate to this. But wonderful that you're recognizing it, because if somebody is recognizing it, then it means that things haven't gone off the wheels that far yet, is my feeling from reading this. Of course, I don't know because I only have what you have here, but I got to tell you, really nice, and that you're looking for an answer to it, because we don't want to let things like this go too long. And again, we are going to have Evil and Gould to come in and talk about this from a professional standpoint, and hopefully, give some tips and things to be able to help you and your wife. But a couple of things here. I do love that when your wife gets to the point where she can't go any further, that she's calling you in. I think that that's great too, because that means there's an awareness on her part, at least some of the time, to say, now is not a good time for me to deal with this, and then you're tag teaming in and out. I totally appreciate and hear that you're saying that you feel like that's becoming a little bit of a crutch, because it is one of those things that it's just the quick fix in the moment. And it sounds like you're looking at it and saying, okay, but we're getting a bigger problem as a result of this. So a couple of questions that I have for you to think about. First of all, let's take it from the point of view of just your wife. Is she getting enough respite? And if we look at this from an ABA standpoint, right, that there's a behavior that none of you are liking, right, because it's got negative consequences for everybody, that your wife is getting frustrated to the point where, that's the behavior, right, she's getting frustrated to the point where she is behaving in a way that doesn't help her or you or your child, right? So my question is, what's the antecedent? What's happening before? And what are the establishing operations? What's the motivating operations that are going on there, right? I am not the behavior expert, but I know from having been there as the mom that there's stuff going on, right? And take a look at the behavior and see, when is it happening? How is it happening? Is it always happening at dinner time? Is that when your wife is losing it? Is it always after she's had 8-hour shift with your son? Because what we can do sometimes is get there beforehand, so that if you know, and I know it's tough, like you're probably both working and trying to sort this out, and you might be just coming home from work and she's trying to get dinner on the table, and your son is, it's that time of the day when everything's coming together. He's hungry, he's tired, the sun is setting, he's having sensory issues, right? So nobody in that moment is really prepared for anything, right? Everybody is not at their best. But if you know that, And if you see that that's happening right at dinner time, then see if you can head it off at the pass a little bit. So maybe you steel yourself so that if you've come home and, you know, she's cooking dinner, that before they get to that point, before she has to have you step in, that you step in and say, you know, I'm going to take him for a walk around the block so that he's burning out some of that energy and she's got 10 minutes to herself and you've headed it off at the pass. I'm just using that as an example of if you see that it's happening at dinner time. But I think if you take that, you know, make that the two lines, so you make the 3 column about when is your wife losing it and seeing what is going on right before, you might be able to step in beforehand. Because what you want to prevent is this endless cycle of her having to say, enough, I can't deal, can you step in? You're saying that that's creating a problem. So if you can do that beforehand and give her 10 minutes, maybe perhaps, depending on what's going on, right? But take a look at it and see what's happening in terms of that. The other part of it that I'm thinking is, you know, certainly you're saying that this is happening too frequently, but are there times in which your wife is managing to deal with the stress and deal with him and not getting to the point of frustration? And has she been reinforced for that? Now, you know, I'm sure in this circumstance that there are things that you have done that have been wonderful that you have not been reinforced for, right? Because that is the reality of this gig, right? But, you know, I will tell you quite honestly, and I was saying this to somebody the other day, you know, my background was always in theater, and I was mentioning to somebody that one of the things that always was said to us on stage is one of the quickest ways to get someone to do something you want them to do is to give them what they want. So if you're praising her and saying, honey, you're doing a really good job in this moment, and I saw the way you did that, and I know it was frustrating, but you got through it, and you know, and you really did a good job. If you can find the opportunity, if there is an opportunity in which she's, you know, not given way to the frustration, to tell her she's doing a good job, I have a sneaking suspicion that at some point she's going to turn around and tell you what a great job you're doing too. But, you know, on this journey as a parent, the reality is you are going to get frustrated sometimes. And I can't speak for everybody, but my reality is that sometimes I lose it. You know, I have raised my voice and yelled. I don't like it. I don't like who I am when that happens, and I don't like for it to happen with any frequency. But I would be lying to you if I told you that I never, ever had gotten to that point. So I think we got to be realistic about it, but I can tell you that I always got to that point because I had nothing left to give in that moment. So take a look at your circumstances for what's going on and how you can shore this up and be in this together. I think you're already halfway there because you're writing and asking for some help. We talk about stress and how important it is for all of us to find white noise time, that, you know, meditating, getting enough sleep. You know, it may be as you look at all your circumstances and say, you know, how much sleep is my wife getting? How much time is she getting away from our child? You know, it may be that it's time to call her girlfriends and say, hey, you know, we need a little support here. Have you got an hour you can give me in the next week? And if you get 2 women who can say, yep, I can come over to your house and spend an hour, because it may be that she just needs a little bit of downtime and that hasn't been there. I read the other day that somebody had posted on Facebook, you know your life has changed when you consider being able to go to the grocery store by yourself a vacation, right? And it was signed motherhood. You know, there were times when my husband saw me getting to a place where I was, you know, and I would say to him too, I'm close to the edge here. I'm skating on a very thin line. I need a break. And he would say to me, honey, you know, let's work this out. And he would find the time and say, what do you want to go and do? And in that moment, I would sit there and say, you know what I really want to do is I want to be able to do a load of laundry and get it done beginning to end. And he would say, but come on, you got to have some time to do something something else to, fulfill yourself creatively. But I would say, yeah, I can't even get to that point because I don't have anything to put on my feet. I need some clean socks, So I would ask if you're in a space where you feel like, she would be willing and not find it further frustrating. But consider asking your wife, what do you need? If I was going to get you some downtime, what do you need? Because it's going to be different things for different people. And I also would ask you to think about when you're finding some downtime for her, that you're finding some downtime for you as well. Because you never want to be in that phase where there's not give and take between the two sides. This is a tough journey for couples. It really is. And early on, my husband and I, as we were creating a home, we wanted to get little statues that depicted what was going on in our lives, right? So there's one that we have that's of a mom and a dad holding a baby. There's one earlier of the dad holding the mom with the pregnant belly. And when we first got together, it was interesting because we had to choose between statues. There was one statue where the couple was standing and they were in the H shape, so they were reaching across and holding each other. And there was another where they had their heads together and we're leaning into each other for an A shape. And I think, there are times when it's great to be H when you're holding on to each other, but not having to hold each other up. But sometimes you got to lean into that A and know that the other person is there and trust that they can help support. You're supporting each other's weight in this. And, it sounds like right now you're in the better place, but that's going to change from time to time, I'm just going to guess, and that there's going to be times when she needs to support you. So think about it in terms of that, but don't put your needs completely someplace else for right now. You're leaning into each other, so you want to say to her, hey, we got to both get some time, right? And so how are we going to do that? What are we going to do for you? What would work for you? Do you need a full day or do you need an hour every other day? What do you need? And really call in circle the wagons. If you've got your mother, your mother-in-law, some of her good girlfriends. I've had people write in and say that their brother-in-law was the person who stepped it up. But don't be afraid to ask your family and say, hey, we need some help and support here. But also, too, I'm hearing that, so that's on the end of us dealing with ourselves, right, and dealing with the couple issues. But I'm also curious about what kind of help your son is getting, because what I'm hearing from you is that he is frustrated about his ability to communicate his feelings and what his needs are. And that if we can get some better functional communication skills on board fairly quickly, it may not be as frustrating for your wife. She's still going to need breaks. We all need respite, right? Can I tell you how hard that was for me to accept? I really thought that as a mother, I was supposed to be there. I was supposed to be able to take it, and I was supposed to be able to figure it out, and I was supposed to be able to do it by myself. And I really felt like if I couldn't, that made me a failure. And it took me a long time to know that that was false, that I needed help, that I needed time away from my child, that my child needed time away from me. I'm still struggling with that, right? Because I still think I need to be the person there. So, it may be that you give your wife time away and that she's hesitant to take it. Be considerate about that and help her to take little increments of time at a time away and let her know that she's not in this by herself. But again, we're going to have Evelyn Gould come in tomorrow and talk about things. And I know she has some ACT things that she is going to, exercises and stuff that she's going to recommend, a book in particular that she's going to recommend that might be helpful. But I got to go back to commending you. You're doing a really great job. And I suspect that your wife has been doing a good job, but that she's just reaching that critical mass. Let's head it off at the pass, figure out what you can do to help her, but she probably needs a break. And, if you guys can communicate about that. But tune in tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Evelyn Gould's going to be with us. And if you guys who are at home because you've done this too, all of you at home, been through that moment when, whoo, you just reach full, right? The tank is full and you cannot take anything more, right? And how you got through it. My thing was that for a while, when I got to that point, I would go take a shower. Because it was something that I could do that was fairly quick, fairly inexpensive. I could be totally alone for whatever reason. My son began to understand that when mommy is in the shower, it is pretty much her alone time. My husband would do something with him and I would get 5 to 10 minutes by myself, the water. I could cry in the shower. I could scream in the shower. I could sing in the shower. And there were days when I was taking 4 showers. And you got to do what you got to do, right? But that was for me. Figure out, help your wife to figure out what is going to take her out of the situation for a little while to get her to come back in a better headspace. We all need that. All right. We are going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to do the executive functions tip of the week. Stick with us.
My name is Crystal Shepard.
I'm Pete.
And our son Logan was diagnosed in February of 2003. Wow, it seems like a long time ago.
Yeah.
We were fortunate enough to find CARD when he was 20 months old. My husband called and said, "You need to go to this place. I've researched it. You need to go right now." So I went and knocked on the door, and we found Doreen.
Doreen, we sat down, and I'll never forget what she said. She goes, "Well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to get him caught up and make sure he never falls behind again." I was like, that's it, And
He's a very fun, popular kid.
Rock star.
Rock star. He's a drummer, quite an accomplished drummer. He never stops talking. He's got a funny story and a smile for everybody that he meets. And it's pretty amazing. He's a completely different kid. Recovery is possible if you take the right steps, if you're willing to put in all the hard work. And 7.5 years, yeah, it's a lot of work. It's worth every little bit, and CARD's been there with us every step of the way.
My name's Monica.
And I'm Mark.
And we have a son, Riley, and he is autistic.
Riley was almost completely non-communicative at the time that he was diagnosed. Really no language, no interest in speaking. And one of the big changes is he independently states a lot of things now.
I need to walk.
You need to walk? Make him walk. Asks for things that he wants, responds appropriately.
Hi, Daddy Dory.
Oh, so nice. We've tried other things before ABA, but the most beneficial thing has been ABA services, and I'd be the first person to tell any newly diagnosed family that you have to contact an ABA provider. And if you're lucky enough to have CARD, you're very blessed.
We are extremely grateful for the amazing job CARD has done in helping our daughter. Our daughter today, just in 4 months, I think is a totally different child than when she started with CARD. I kind of see it as, it seems like her brain in a way was asleep, and now that we've gotten so many services, we've seen her wake up.
Did you have some glasses?
And now she engages with everybody. It's wonderful. She likes to play, and she's very affectionate, and she expresses that now. Her language has gotten a lot better just in the last 4 months. It's amazing.
Since starting with CARD, Amaya's made a ton of progress, and we couldn't be more grateful that she has become potty trained, started using utensils individually. She is learning how to navigate public, is holding our hands and just wanting to be around people more. So we're so grateful for everything that you guys have done.
Hi, Dr. Grandpa Shay. Congratulations on your 20-year anniversary of GARD. I love all my GARD teachers. They are the best. And now I'd like to play you a Beatles song. It's called Cross the Universe.
I first saw Dr. Grandpa Shay speak at a biomedical conference somewhere, and I was just so impressed with her. She stood up there and she talked with such confidence about recovery and what she could do for these children, and she had a whole curriculum, and I was just so impressed. But she said things like, teach them, help them to develop these other skills that they have. And I thought that was so neat hearing that from her, that it would be good for them socially and help them to bridge with others. And so over the years, that's actually something my son has developed. If he hadn't had speech therapy or OT over the years, he probably would be just about, pretty much the same child still, not so different. But if he hadn't had CARD, he would be a completely different child. This program has unlocked the door for him to have a bright future.
Bye. Thanks for watching.
My name is Rachel Pokorski, and I have a son, Kyle Pokorski, who's 7 years old now.
Cool art by Kyle.
Around 15 months, we noticed that he had lost some speech, that he was headbanging, he had tantrums, and we were lucky. We waited and we got in with CARD, and it started working right away.
I have another exciting feature. If you put more marbles in, they alternate.
He's in a second grade class. He's at the top of his class. He reads over 100 words a minute. He's reading at 5th grade level. He loves space and astronomy, and he'll tell you, why does Venus rotate backwards? Yeah, why don't the marbles go up? Why do they go down?
Because gravity.
And he's always wanting to know more.
Why are you the one that takes the microphone?
He loves to surf.
First, I didn't want to surf, but now I love to surf.
He loves to horseback ride.
I won a trophy.
You have made a difference in his life.
CARD helped me to save.
I owe everything to you. Now, who built this?
I did.
And are you a good builder?
Yes!
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. I want to take a second here at the top of the third hour to talk about the fact that we love it when you participate with us and that you become a part of the conversation, because that's really what the show is meant to be. We love it when you write in and ask us questions, and there's lots of different ways in which you can do that. If you are watching us on autism-live.com, on the top of the screen it either says live or rebroadcast. If it says live, there's a box there that says your questions. By the way, you don't have to log in, you don't have to do anything. All you have to do is put your cursor in that box and start to write. If we're live, you can hit enter and it shows up right here on my screen. And again, it's free. So that's wonderful if you're watching live. If you're watching and it says rebroadcast, or you're watching us in any of the other ways that you can watch us, there are still lots of ways to participate in the conversation. There's our email address. Really encourage you to write in with your questions, your suggestions. We had somebody write in last night with a question. They will get a written response, plus which I talked about it a little bit, and we're going to have Evelyn Gould come on to also answer the question as an expert tomorrow at 10 a.m. So that's one example of what happens when you email. You can also phone in. We have a phone line. We can patch you in directly into the studio and have a conversation with you in that way. Or you can just call and speak to somebody outside the studio if you would like. We have people waiting to take your phone call to be of use to you. You can also Skype into the show. You can do that audio only or audio and picture, whatever makes your day. We love to have your input on the show. That's Skype. Also want to tell you that you can talk to us via Facebook, and a lot of you are participating in the question of the day in that way on Facebook. Hey, while you're on Facebook, will you do me a favor and like us there, because we're one of the new guys on the block, and we have not spent our time marketing and having people like our Facebook page, because I'm sure we should do that, but I feel like we have other more important things to do. But if while you're there on Facebook, if you would hit the like thing, we would greatly appreciate it. And of course, you can tweet to us. We are on Twitter as well. And also want to remind you that there are lots of places that you can be watching us besides autism-live.com. Currently, you can watch us on blip.tv. You can watch us on our very own YouTube channel. You can download us for free on iTunes, and we are also available on Ustream. So and if that doesn't work for you, please let us know what would work for you so that we can make that happen for you. We're here for you. It's free on all of those different sites. So participate at will, I guess is what I'm saying, because I personally love it. That's what I'm here for, really, not just to talk endlessly into the camera, but I really want to chase down the answers that you guys need. I want to find the expert who can help you to do the thing that you want to be able to do so your child can reach their highest potential, and that your home life is the highest possible, happiest, most joyous interaction that it can be. Heaven knows people did that for me, and I am passionate about doing that for you. So take advantage of it. Don't be shy. You are not bothering me at all. In fact, people make fun of me because I get so happy when you guys write in and ask me to do something. But I do. And so take advantage of it. All right. I've been promising you now for half an hour an executive functions tip, and I really was planning on it, which is exactly what our executive functions tip of the week is. It's about planning. You've probably heard that phrase that if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. I don't know if that's true in 100% of circumstances, but it's a great way of looking at things and thinking, okay, so what more could I accomplish if I planned, right? And we said earlier how important it is for us to plan for generalization. Well, how about teaching the skill of planning to our children and reinforcing when they plan so that they find it pleasurable, so that they learn how to do it? Ooh, right? Now, some of you might be thinking, well, now wait a second. My child is 3. My child is nonverbal. Why are we talking about planning? Because there are a lot, and maybe that's not going to be our focus when a child is 3, except that it's never too early to start introducing and modeling things for a child, right? Because in our ideal world, right, we were just talking yesterday to Arthur Fleischman. I still have the book here. Let me show you. He is the dad of Carly Fleischman, Carly's Voice, this wonderful, wonderful book and I want to encourage you to go to their website, www.carlysvoice.com. And so we were talking to this dad who had 3 small children, one of them who was on the spectrum, one of them who had apraxia and was nonverbal. And that, they kept plugging away and trying to figure out what worked for Carly. But at the age of 10, Carly began to be able to communicate on a keyboard, to be able to talk to people and have conversation back and forth. And now she's 17 years old and is looking forward to college and is quite the social networker, and you guys can have conversations with her. And she is planning on leading a full and rich life. So imagine if her parents hadn't done anything having to do with planning with her until she reached the age of 17, and what a disservice that would have been to this young woman, right? And as everybody was saying yesterday, we have to assume intelligence, we have to assume the highest possible potential and teach to that potential. If you see down the road that that's not where your child is going to get, I don't think it's going to be time that is not been well spent, because planning helps all of us no matter what we're doing, right? That in order to go to the bathroom on a regular basis, there's a certain amount of planning involved in that, right? So starting with a 3-year-old, not too early to talk about those kinds of things and model them, right? When we're saying to a child before we were leaving the house to go to a grocery store, let's go to the bathroom before we go, we're teaching planning, right? Because we know that eventually the child is going to have to go to the bathroom, so let's take care of it before we go. That's planning, right? So never too early to teach a child about planning. And we make it reinforcing for them, so we model it for them, we prompt them to do it, and we reinforce it and say, oh, it's such a good thing that you went to the bathroom beforehand. That's really planning. That's really thinking it through, right? And reinforce them for that so that they know, hey, when I plan, that's a good thing. Even though you may have done it, it's okay. You prompted it, but they still did it, right? For our older kids, there are wonderful lessons and skills for the older kids who are high functioning and have Asperger's, kids that are in junior high. I firmly believe that every single junior high schooler in the world, because it really should be everybody, but it's certainly here in the United States, every single junior high school child could benefit from doing the executive functions program and skills, whether they're on the spectrum or not, because it really is the recipe for success in life. That it teaches you that in order to achieve a goal, you gotta plan, and it teaches you how to plan, and it helps gives teaching points of how to make that reinforcing, how to say, well, you know what? I want to swim in the Olympics. So if I want to swim in the Olympics in 2024, that means that in 2023 I have to have done this. So in 2022 I have to have done this. In 2021 I'll have to be here, which means that tomorrow I have to get in the pool. And I have to do this much, and gives you a guideline so that you're taking it from the goal backwards, how to plan, that you're checking along the way to see, is the plan working, setting, specific points to check and see, is this working? If it's not, diagnosing what the problem is, not throwing the whole baby out with the bathwater, but saying, here's where we've gone awry, here's how we're going to problem solve and fix it. Something else comes up that steals the attention, and so we have to figure out what to focus on so that we maintain for the goal, and being able to remember the things that you need to remember so that we attain the goal. Now, everybody's goal is not to swim in the Olympics, right? But everybody has goals that they would like to attain. Think about it for a small child. It may be that that goal is something that they want to do in 10 minutes. It may be that they want to be able to play video games, right? And so you can say to a child, after we've worked on preferences, there are some prerequisites to this, but imagine that we've worked on preferences with a child and we say, okay, what would you like to do today? Or what would you like to do this week? And giving our child, depending on where they are, an idea of how to plan for a goal, and seeing how reinforcing it is to plan, but then how extra special reinforcing when you achieve the goal as a result of planning. Ooh, pretty exciting, right? So maybe we say to the 5-year-old, and we do this on a regular basis, what do you want to work for, right? That we're going to sit down and we're going to do some teaching moments. What do you want to work for? And a child who is has functional communication skills, whether it's by pointing or signing or saying it, says, I want to work for video games. We say, great. Okay, so first what we're going to do is this, and if you get 5 stickers, then you're going to be able to play video games. Well, there's a certain amount of planning involved in that. Okay, my goal is I want to play video games. So what do I have to do? I have to get the 5 stickers. Great, you got the 5 stickers. Boom, right? Then you can add in things that are a little bit more midterm goals. So, okay, what do you want to be able to do this weekend? Well, this weekend, you want to be able to buy a new Lego. So in order to buy the Lego and in order to earn your allowance, every day you need to do this, this, and this, and make it very clear. Put it on a chart for them. Here's what you have to do, and you're going to get a sticker every day that you get it, so that when we get to Saturday, you get your allowance, you get to go buy the Lego. What you're helping your child to do is to plan, make a goal, and to plan. I have to do this on these days, and giving them a visual schedule of, oh, I have to make my bed. I have to feed my fish. I have to talk nicely to mommy, right? Whatever it is that's on the list, right? As a parent, doesn't it get exciting at this point? You go, wow. If this was a reality in my life, how exciting would this be? But the truth is that we can ramp up to that point absolutely with our kids, whether they are vocal or not, but we just have to do the prerequisites up to it and start with very small things. That even the smallest token economy we see with Jack Riley on the A word, that they're ramping up towards this. He's only 3 years old, so he's not going to understand this very complex thing yet, but he does understand now the sticker chart, that if he does something, he gets a sticker, and then as a result, he's going to get something else. So gradually they're going to make that longer and longer, and at some point it's going to go overnight, so that he'll have a sticker chart and something that he has to work for 2 days in order to get it. The first time that my son had that happen was in kindergarten. That we started with something that, you know, initially he had a sticker chart, and if he got a sticker at school, then he got something for it. And then we made it so that it was every other day, that he had to get it for 2 days. Ooh, it was a big leap, but he did that. And then I've talked about this before in kindergarten, that every day he could earn a daddy dollar or mommy money. And I should bring in, we still have some of it around the house. We basically, on a scrapbooking computer program, I dummied up some things that said mommy money and daddy dollars, and it had a picture of him with daddy or a picture of him with mommy, where it would have had a president, right? And they were in these bright day glow colors, and we shipped them off to school. And we told him, initially it was that if he earned one at school, he could come home and he could trade a daddy dollar for something, and he could choose which things, but it was currency. It was real currency to him. It wasn't legal tender. But then eventually we had it, we had different items that, you had to have $5, daddy dollars or 5 pieces of mommy money in order to buy the thing on the counter. Kind of made it like a store. And then we ramped up to Disneyland. That in order to go to Disneyland, he had to have, I think it was some random number. It was like 47 of them in order to go to Disneyland. And he did it. Almost consecutively, because he was so concerned about, and he would come home and he would put his dollars there. He was 5, he was in kindergarten, and this was a child who at 3 did not have any functional communication skills. This is the power of ABA. Now, is it going to be different for every child? Absolutely. There's probably some 4-year-olds who could do it, and there are some 8-year-olds who could not. But starting where the child is and ramping up, we can teach planning, we can make it reinforcing, and help our child to get to the point where it gets longer term goals. Now he's working on things that, he literally will say to me something, well, I got to do this because I have to have that by the time I go to college. He's 9. When I was 9, I was not thinking I need to do this so that when I go to college. But am I thrilled that my child on the spectrum is? You betcha. So we fail to plan, we plan to fail. Let's teach planning to our children wherever they are and help them to see how reinforcing and rewarding it is. Okay, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back and we're going to do the myth of the day, which is about funding for ABA. So stick with us.
ACT Today, or Autism Care and Treatment Today, was founded in 2004 by several passionate parents who believe that access to early, effective treatment is vital for individuals with autism. Together with Dr. Doreen Graham-Pache, the world's leading provider of therapy for autism, this group created ACT Today to do just as the name implies, take action immediately to treat autism spectrum disorders.
A lot of families and parents and even physicians don't yet accept the fact that we are recovering children with autism.
In 2006, inspired by her struggle to get treatment for her young son Wyatt, television producer and author Nancy Alspaugh Jackson and her husband Reed hosted a backyard benefit for the foundation called Denim and Diamonds for Autism. Tens of thousands of dollars were raised, and in 2008, Alspaugh Jackson took the helm of Act Today as executive director.
This country has to come together to save a generation of children.
With a dedicated board of directors, a small but committed staff called the A-Team, as in autism, Act Today is making a huge difference in the lives of children across the country. Grants that fund programs for behavior therapy, special needs schools, and summer camps. Medical needs like diagnostic tests and special diets. Basic safety equipment such as helmets for children who repetitively bang their heads, and fencing for those who wander. Assisted technologies and assistance dogs.
Hi, my name is Max, and I love my iPad too. It's so great. I can take photos.
In 2010, Act for Military Families became the first national campaign to benefit military children with autism.
I'm Joe Montaigne. As a father of a daughter with autism, I know the challenges that brings.
Act Today continues to educate and raise national awareness on the need for early and intensive intervention for an epidemic that affects at least 1 in 110 children.
I called on November 1st. And I'm like, how am I going to get notified? How are you going to let me know? And they ended up looking and they informed me that he had received the grant, which was like a blessing from above.
Act Today, fulfilling its mission of helping families with autism, one child at a time.
Welcome back to Autism Live. It is time for Myth of the Day. I was just saying we should have music that, Myth of the Day. And Emily is making fun of me, as she should. In any case, it's Thursday. You see how it all starts to go south by Thursday. I'm not as fine, upstanding citizen as I am. I'm more silly towards the end of the week. So tune in tomorrow to see where I'm at. In any case, it's time for the Myth of the Day, and this is serious business, right? Talking about funding for autism. And because this is part of the journey too, right? There's nothing that takes the wind out of my sails faster than seeing what's right, seeing what works, knowing that this is something that is life-changing, and then being told, well, you can't afford it, which, this is what I refer to as the steaming pile of poo. It's a technical term that I invented because I have a friend of mine who says, show me the dollar sign over my child's head. Just point it out to me. As soon as you can show it to me, then I'll believe that it's there. But until you can, then we don't get to say that we can't afford something for my child. And I love that. Because if it works, our kids should all have access to it. So one of the big myths that we've heard over and over and over again is that insurance won't cover ABA therapy. And the reason why it's a really insidious myth is that for the longest time, that was the absolute truth. And I remember saying to somebody about 1.5 years ago, how on earth did they get away with this? How did the insurance companies manage to escape for so long? And what's happening now that they're starting to see that they have to, and they're starting to cave in? And I thought the answer was pretty interesting, that insurance companies, since they've been around, have had it written into their, I don't know whether it's their bylaws or whatever, that they are not expected to have to treat things that are deemed experimental, so that if research cannot show that it is effective, then they do not have to pay for it. And this is where autism got the proverbial you-know-what for so many years. Because for so long, insurance companies were saying, well, there's nothing that works across the board. It's very hit and miss, so we don't have to pay for it. And what happened that changed that is that ABA was shown to be scientifically proven to be effective for all of our kids, to the extent that they all make progress. And as a result, the insurance companies could no longer hide behind that. That's really why we are seeing the insurance companies capitulate. That and the fact that parents stood up and said, you can't do this anymore. You have no place to hide, and we're going to put the pressure on, and we're going to keep the pressure on until you capitulate. I really, somewhere, we have to find that, Emily. There is, we have video, I think it's on my desk, of the lawmakers and the moms in Arizona who went to the Hill. Boy, I get chills even talking about it, because it's just amazing to me that here were these group of people, and they say in the interviews, you know, I really didn't think we were going to make it happen on the year that we did, but we were going to go anyway because we couldn't not be heard anymore. And you see the lawmakers saying, you know, we really just didn't think it was going to happen this year, but we thought it was important, and we knew that we wanted to go and say our piece so that maybe the next year or the year after, that at some point insurance reform would happen, and that nobody had this expectation that they were going to get it through in that year. But enough people went and said, well, you know, even if it seems insurmountable, I'm still going to speak the truth, and I'm going to be accountable for the truth, and I'm going to hear the truth and speak it. And what happened was that it was so overwhelming that they got on the floor, and enough people heard and spoke the truth that they really couldn't deny it anymore. And so it passed. And then them talking about what that moment meant, oh, I just well up thinking about it. And of course, it became the first state, Arizona, to have insurance reform. And now we have 30 and counting. So what does that mean for you at home? I don't know. I don't know, because I don't know which state you're in. And even within different states, there are different laws, and there are exceptions, and people who are included and people who aren't included. And that's a mess, right? But it's a much better mess than we were in even 4 years ago. So here is the thing that I'm going to ask you for, is to take a look at your situation. And there's something that I have friends who are in sales, and they have an expression that says, go for the no, and then push a little bit further. So I want you to go for the no. I want you to take a look at autismvotes.org, a wonderful website that'll give you a beginning glimmer of an understanding of what's happening in your area. It's not going to explain it all cut and dried for you, but you're going to look at the map and at least know which way you're going to argue, right? So that if you see that you live in the state of California and insurance reform has passed, and you see that the date that it starts is July 1st, 2012, yes, that's right, folks, just a few days away, then you know that in this moment in time, you need to be getting your ducks in a row and be asking if you are one of the people in the state of California that are included in this insurance reform. There is every possibility that you are. There is still the possibility that you are not. But you got to go for the no. And part of, after you look and say, okay, well, we have the insurance reform, then you need to go to your provider. Usually your best bet is to go to your HR person where you work. If you call the actual insurance company, you know that you're going to get somebody on the phone who has a script that has not been rewritten. Right? They don't know whether you are covered or not. And you know how it is on those phone things. You're going to get put off to somebody, and it's going to be a frustrating experience. So save yourself. Don't do that. Go to your HR director and say, I need some help. I know that the law has just changed, so I need for you to not talk to the first person. I need to know whether our insurance is self-funded, and if it is, are you choosing to comply or not? What is happening? and task them with hunting down the answers for you. You probably are going to have a pretty good idea when you talk to them how helpful they're going to be, because you know some HR people are like, I'm going to find it for you. And then there are other people who are like, I don't know, and I couldn't get anybody. If you get somebody who is not helpful, bypass them, but start with the HR director first. There's some really good HR people out there who want to help you. That's their job, to help you. It's what they're paid to do, and they want to. It's what they love. They're passionate about it. I hope that's your HR person. If it's not, go over them. But have them ask the questions for you and see if you are covered and how you are covered. It's probably not the be-all, end-all what you're going to find out to begin with, because keep in mind, here's some good news, so prepare yourself, that your state has usually, they have caps and limits and ages and things that you look and go, oh, okay, so here you look on Autism Speaks and you see that here's who's covered, here's what the caps are, here's what the amounts are. It's very cut and dried, right? Except it's not, because there is the Mental Health Parity Act that's federal. And anytime there is a federal law, it supersedes a state law. I didn't know that either. But if your insurance policy, for instance, has the ability to cover other things that might include behavioral support, let's say that in your health plan, if your child were to fall off of a horse and sustain some brain damage that required them to have OT, as they came back from this brain injury from falling off the horse. And then you would look and see, well, what is the dollar amount set for that kind of thing? If it's $110,000 a year, then even though you might have a cap of $30,000 a year for ABA on your state plan, what the federal government has said, you can't fund one thing one way and something else less. Don't you love it? And so if in your plan it would cover that kind of support up to $110,000 a year, then guess what? It does for autism too, because that federal law supersedes the state cap. Good things to know, right? Really encourage you to get yourself as informed as possible about your insurance plan. If you find that you are covered, you're going to want to make sure that you have a diagnosis. Now, it's more important than ever that your child has a diagnosis that is on the books. Do you know that I just found out recently that according to, and I'm on my husband's health plan at his work because we were on that a lot longer ago, they do not have my son on the books as having autism because we just never, nothing was covered, so we never took the time to dot that I and cross that T. I have the papers from a doctor where he was diagnosed 2 different occasions in the beginning and then other times as well that he was assessed. So I definitely can prove that. But if you have not taken the time to get your child assessed and to get that actual piece of paper, get it now. And it doesn't matter for insurance purposes whether it's Asperger's, PDD-NOS, or autism. All of them apply for insurance, but you're going to need that diagnosis, and what I understand from our insurance people is you're going to need for a doctor, a medical doctor, on a prescription pad is fine, to write a prescription that it is medically necessary for your child to receive ABA. And that is what you need to start. The doctor does not need to have said how much. That's going to come when your child gets assessed, and the insurance company is going to be involved in that. But you got to get the diagnosis and you got to get the prescription. That's how insurance is going to cover it, is with that prescription. So if you already find that you're covered in your state, great. Make sure that you have that stuff and get started. You're going to want to ask your provider about, do they have in-provider, or what is the circumstance of how they're going to fund it. One of the things that Bryce Myler, we got to have her back in the studio again soon. She is our resident expert in insurance. She is the head of contracts here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. And she is the mom of a young man who recovered from autism, all thanks to ABA therapy. So who better to be finding out the answers for you? She is amazing. She's patient. She's very pointed with her questions to insurance company, and she knows the right question to ask. So we'll have to have Bryce back in the studio. But one of the things that she mentioned is that until insurance, when insurance takes, and I'm going to use California as the example, but I know it's different times, different states, but when they start on July 1st, it's been very quick, and not all insurance companies have been able to get an in-network provider. If they don't have an in-network provider, then they have to pay for the out-of-network provider as they would for the in-network provider. And connect the dots on that one, because it may be that there's somebody specifically that you would like to be using that you, depending on how your insurance company does it, may eventually be your in-network provider, but in this moment in time, they aren't. But if there is no in-network provider, then you're going to be funded at the rate that they would have been funding for the they're going to have to pay the extra, is what I'm saying. So you can get the creme de la creme right now, in some instances, and pay no more than you would have had to pay for the in-network. Woohoo! Bonus. So I guess at the end of the day, I'm suggesting that with all the other things that you have to do, bless you, you need to become an expert in your particular plan and your particular state. I also want to remind you that for some of you that are in states that do not yet have insurance reform, that doesn't mean that you're not included in this too. You're going to want to check with your individual provider, because there have been at least one, and I think two insurance companies that have already made settlements and agreed to pay for ABA even before there is any insurance reform. I know that Blue Cross, Blue Shield, Anthem made a settlement. So if that is your provider, but I think, I might be mistaken, I think there's at least one other one. So even if you don't have it in your state, it's entirely possible that you are still covered, and it's worth it to check. It is so very worth it to check, because if you can get this for free, it doesn't take away the problems, right? But it minimizes them. My son, because we lived in the state of California before the state of California ran out of funding, had a program in which, if we demonstrated as a family that we were going to take this serious enough, and I thought it was as serious as a heart attack, that we got our program fully funded. And my whole life today, and that's really emotional for me, but my whole life today is as a result of the fact that we had the benefit of that, because I promise you that we could not have afforded it. And I have my child, and we have a full life because of that. So don't delay. Find out for yourself. Push for that no, and then push past it. Make sure that you're not covered before you give up. And if that's the case, and if you're 100% sure you're not covered, would you please write to me and tell me where you are, so that we can help to figure out how you can get it a different way. Because all of our kids deserve this. All of them do. And we really have to help them. We have to advocate. Okay, my soapbox and my emotional breakdown are over. We're going to take a break. We are going to come back, and we're going to talk about social language and how important it is to be teaching those skills to our children. Stick with us.
Mostly the behavior started at night, but it was invading the day, where he would just speak one syllable and babble and pace around.
When she was a year old, she lost speech. She did never seem to request me for anything, even for food.
He told me over the phone that I should just put her in an institution. I was devastated. What's an institution? A hospital. Yeah, isn't that nice?
He told me that it was possible or likely that Ruffin would never be employed, that he would never work productively, that he would not know that I loved him, nor would he love me, nor would he be likely to marry.
There's a 50% chance that he won't be able to talk at all, but if he does talk, he will only be able to, make simple desire requests. I want, things like that. And probably by the time he was 10, he'd be in a home.
Doreen told me that he would recover, and Doreen told me that he would go to regular kindergarten.
I really have a very normal kid now, and lots of normal worries, but not extraordinary ones.
My name is Deli Popola, and I'm one of the creators of theAutspot.com. TheAutspot.com is an online support system for families and specialists who are affected by autism across the whole world. Share inspirational stories, find resources in their area. Hope you can join.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We got to take a second for a couple of quick shout outs, and then we're going to talk about social language. But quick shout out to our friends at the Autspot that we just saw them in the clip beforehand. Check them out, theautspot.com. They're also on Facebook. It's a really wonderful, it's like Facebook for autism. And what I love is that there's different forums, different things that you can be talking about. So if you're a parent, you can be talking about parent things. But there are also great spaces for teenagers to be talking to each other about the kinds of things that they go through, and boy, we need to give our kids that kind of support. And there is something about doing it through the internet that allows them a certain amount of anonymity, so a certain amount of honesty, to be able to talk to each other in a way that's really conducive for them, where they're not having to deal with some of the aspects of social language we're going to talk about in a minute. So really, really useful for lots of different reasons, the Hotspot. Also want to remind everybody that today and tomorrow still the Speed Gamers are raising money for autism care and treatment today, and they're doing it by playing video games. You just have to love the brilliance of this, right? A group of young people who are very passionate about playing video games, and they set themselves up for a week marathon. Right now you can see they're playing Pokemon, and they got to be tired because they've been at this for a week, but they have already raised I wrote it down someplace. Where did I write it down? $41,801. There it is. Well, now it's gone up since we just came back from break. They're shooting for $50,000, and I would like to see them exceed $50,000. But what a wonderful, wonderful thing. You know, when we think, okay, I'd like to do something, how great is it when people think outside the box and do the thing that they're passionate about and help somebody else? This money is going to Autism Care and Treatment Today, Act Today, which we absolutely love. My co-host during Let's Talk Autism was Shannon and Nancy. Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson is the executive director of Act Today. It is a nonprofit charity that gives grants to families for the things that they need and ask for. So if the family is asking for an iPad, if they're asking for assessments, if they're asking for money to help make the gap between their deductible on their insurance so that they can get the ABA therapy, they grant all of those things and much more. So a wonderful, wonderful charity. So already $41,809 and change been raised this week alone by the Speed Gamers. You can support them by going to www.thespeedgamers.com. You can also get to them through the Act Today website. But I encourage you to go and spend at least a couple of minutes as a way of thanking them. Spend some time on the site, watch. But, you know, it's a little addictive. I have to say this, that you'll see that they're playing, right? And I don't really understand the game. I don't really get that. But my son does. So, you know, that's fine. But there's a chat scroll that runs next to it, and I enjoy watching that. I get a little confused from time to time, but people will write in and say things. And these kids are absolutely, unrelentingly shameless in how they raise money, which you just have to love. So somebody will say, hey, I want you to, go and do this inside the game, or sitting there in the studio, they'll say, will you spray yourself with silly string? And they say, yes, for $10, we'll do it. And then the person donates $10 and they spray themselves with silly string, or they do something within the game. You just gotta love that, right? And the money is going to a really great charity that the money actually gets to the families for the things that they need. Want to remind you also that Act Today is about to start a grant phase. Starting on July 1st, they'll be accepting applications for grants, and we want there to be as much money in that column as possible to draw from to fill those grants. So the other thing that you can do for the speed gamers is spread the word. We know you're on Facebook. We know that from time to time you're on Twitter or other things. Would you do us a favor and let people know about the speed gamers and that it goes towards autism this week? So a wonderful, wonderful thing. Also have to do another shout out, because it's just shout out time, that we had the fabulous Sean Colton on the show last week. This is a dad who's raising money for a book that he is writing. That it's a wonderful book, you guys. It's called Legends of the Boo Monster. On Kickstarter, he is raising the money. And it has a wonderful fantasy element to it, that his son, there's a character, the Boo Monster is based on his son, but it's a fantasy character who lives in this world. And it's really a beautiful tale about autism, but it's an allegory, so we're not necessarily seeing that, but they call it The Distance. And I can't wait to read the whole book. It just sounds so exciting to me. They have met their goal. I will tell you that this book is going to become a reality, and that's because you guys all participated and they've met the goal. But every dollar that's given to them now just helps them make the book better. So if you want to be involved, if you didn't want to miss out on this, you can go to Kickstarter.com, put in Sean Colton, SHAWNCOLTON, or you can put in Legends of the Boo Monster, and you can give $1. You can give $1 and say, I was a part of this book. Or what I did, and I know a lot of you thought this was a great idea too, if you give $25, then he will base a character at the end of the book on somebody in your life. I've chosen for it to be my son, so that hopefully around Christmas time I'm going to be able to put a book in his hands and he's going to read through it, this wonderful tale about autism, from a really wonderful perspective, and get to the end of the book and see a character that's based on him that has a line of dialogue in the book. How fabulous is that? And I got that for $25. You can't beat that, and you can still do that by going to Kickstarter. So congratulations to Sean and to the Boo Monster and the illustrator. We're hoping to have them on the show at some time in the next week or so that we can officially congratulate them. But it's not too late. You can still participate. They have till the end of the month. And while I'm doing the shout outs, I want to remind you that you still have a full week still to vote for Not Forgotten, the movie. This is Not Forgotten, the untold story of autism in Ukraine, a documentary that's being made. The film has been shot, but they need to edit it. They need some funds to do that. So they're in a contest. It doesn't cost any money. Go to notforgottenthemovie.com, click the button. It'll take you to Facebook. You sign in on Facebook and you vote for their project. If they're 1st through 6th, they're going to be able to get this film done and be able to help families in the Ukraine. Again, it doesn't cost anything, and you can vote once a day until the end of the month, and they really appreciate your votes. If they were to come in first, they'll have money to translate books to help families on the ground there, to help the practitioners, because that's how far behind things are in the Ukraine. We lament about how far behind we are where we need to be here, but you guys, I can't even imagine. Even 10 years ago, it was illegal to diagnose with someone with autism in Ukraine. So let's, if you have a minute, vote for Not Forgotten, the movie. Okay, you know what? And we've gone so long, let's take a quick break and then we'll come back and talk about social language. Stick with us.
Here I stand, a man, someone who has overcome struggles, someone who has endured perceptions of what others thought of him, thinking he was stupid because he was autistic, or simply believing him to be nothing because he was different to them in their minds. But I stood my ground. I just wanted to say to the organization in general, alongside helping me to improve communicatively and socially, the other greatest gifts you gave me were the value of discipline and a good work ethic. To quote Anthony Kiedis, "To celebrate you is greater now that I can." You helped me to realize that the harder you work, the likelier you are to achieve success. Having had to work very, very hard to recover from autism, this discipline has continued to serve me well. I also realized that you taught me a lot about and instilled within me a quality of having compassion and sympathy for other people. That you will be concerned more with the needs and wishes of others than with your own is something that I'm awe of and I constantly strive to be. And in closing, the only way I can sum up CARD, all of you, is love. Everything you do to help families in need, you do out of the sheer love of wanting to make a positive difference in people's lives. And as I stand here before you as a mature adult, I have to say that I'm extremely grateful for your unwavering loving commitments to helping others in need recover from potential life roadblocks and become active and contributing members of society. While I can't overcome obstacles without a will, I cannot have a will without the love of those supporting me. And without love, I am nothing. Thanks again so very much for your love, everything that you've done and continue to do. Please give my best wishes to your families, everybody else with CARD who isn't here, and especially all of your clients and their kids. I'm confident that they too will be able to overcome, and I know that they'll be successful with what they do as long as they continue to put their minds, hearts, passions, and best efforts into it. Enough said.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I've been promising you social language, and I mean it. It's coming right now. Okay, why do we teach social language skills to our children? Because, there are so many things within the context of being social, right, that we want to teach our children. And there are so many things in the language arena that we need to teach them. But then there are things that are specific just to social language and how we interact with people. That if we had those skills in place, it would make it easier for everything, right? How often have we seen a child that wants to be social, right? But like something happens, and maybe they get down one aspect of it so they know. I can remember a time when my son would go up, we had moved, and we would go to the playground, and he had worked on greeting people and starting a conversation with people and introducing himself, and he would go up to the kids in the sandbox and he would say, "Hi, my name is Jem and I'm the new kid. What's your name?" Right? And we should go, "Wow, that's amazing," right? And he'd have the eye contact, and and he'd have gone to their level, and he'd have sorted out all these different things. But then one of the kids would say something that would be garbled, that he wouldn't understand what they said, or they would respond with something that was off the wall that you couldn't possibly have prepared for, and my son didn't know how to repair the conversation, right? So it would all fall apart, and you'd go, right? There are so many different little threads that have to be picked up in order for a conversation to go and work well. Don't we experience this in our lives? Don't you have someone that you work with or someone in your family, whether it's on the elevator or on the phone, that you start a conversation with them and you go, "Why is it so much work?" That there's no back and forth, and you're like, or we've all seen somebody on a talk show that, they're sitting there on the talk show and the guest asks them a question and the person responds, "Yes." And you just see that look in the talk show host's eyes of, okay, well, I'm going to try really hard now to get something more than a yes out of you, right? So it's hard just in everyday life, but then add in autism on top of that, and you've got more and more issues to deal with, right? So we work on these things with our children because we can get their skills up in these areas. We can help them to be able to access these kinds of things. And I brought up this slide to show you the full range of the things that we want to work on in social language. Does every child need to work on all of these things? No. This is the really interesting thing about autism, I think, is that all of our kids are different, right? And we could take 20 kids with autism and look look at this list of things, and each of the 20 children would have different aspects that they need to hone in on, and probably one aspect that they don't need to hone in on that they already know how to do. But if we had to, we could go through all of these with every single child in really specific lessons. Again, we're going to teach the lesson to a child. We're going to plan for generalization. We're going to reinforce the behaviors that we want to see. We're going to chunk it down into these little itty bitty elements of something and string them all together to become a skill. So take a look at the list of things on here. Personal information. In the very beginning, after children are starting to have functional communication, we want them to know what their name is. And remember, on these things, we want them to be able to do it both expressively and receptively, so that if eventually we say to a child, what's your name, and that they have a way, whether it's sign or pointing to something or using some sort of assisted technology or vocal speech to tell us what their name is. But we also want them to understand, we want them to understand, when someone says their name as well. But if, in all circumstances, if we say to a child, well, what's your name and who are your parents and where do you live, to understand that information so that in an emergency that they can give that information. And know when to give the information, right? So we're going to teach a child's personal information. What's your phone number? What's your address? What's your mom's name? What's your dad's name? What's, if they have a caregiver, what's your caregiver's name? Where, what grade are you in? How old are you? All of these different things that we want them to know about themselves, because when kids are little, these are the kinds of questions they get asked. Well, how old are you, sweetheart? In line at the grocery store. Well, where do you go to school? Is that your mommy? Do you have brothers and sisters? These are all their personal information, things that people are going to ask them, and we need to prepare them with answers so that they can have that back and forth, because that's the opening salvo for most little kids, right? Then we're going to work on greetings and salutations. We talked about this before, about being able to say hi and goodbye and hello and all of those different things, how we make eye contact. It isn't just about the speech, right? It's about the behavior, that when someone walks into the room, that we look at the person. We want to acknowledge, oh, there's a new person who came into the room, and that we can do that in a lot of different ways. Sometimes it's just eye contact. Sometimes it's nodding. Sometimes it's saying hi. Sometimes it's saying hello. Sometimes it's asking a question, where have you been? But in some way, we greet and acknowledge that someone new has come into our space. Really good for kids to recognize that. It's going to make such a difference in their social communication with other people if we get that step in place. Think about a lot of the kids that we know with Asperger's that don't have this one skill. They have other skills in here. They have other further down the line, but they're failing to acknowledge people, which then is off-putting for them making friends. And if we can get that in place and give them that rule, hey, new person comes in, you need to look up and acknowledge them in some way, because people need to feel important. They're more important than things. We get that in place for an 18-year-old with Asperger's, and suddenly other things fall into place. It's really quite amazing. Okay, prosody. This is a good example of something that all of our kids aren't going to need. They aren't all going to need it, but the ones who do need it, it's going to make a big difference in how they're able to communicate. This is one of our jargon terms. Prosody is being able to use pitch and volume and rate of talking to have somebody understand what it is you're trying to say. So that if I'm saying, get out of the way, right? Then I want you to get out of the way right now. I didn't say get out of the way right now. I just said, get out of the way. But I said it in such a way that you would understand, this is something that has some immediacy attached to it. Or if I'm saying to you, oh, I really love that, then you know that it's something that I really care about, as opposed to saying, I really love that. Because then you don't know, am I being sarcastic? Did I mean it, right? For some of our kids, we'll find that when they came to language later, that they're speaking in a very monotone way, that they're not upward inflecting on questions. So they're asking a question, but people think it's a statement. It's going to prevent social interaction. Okay, the general knowledge, this is one that I find absolutely fascinating. This is one that comes under the heading, when they were working on this with my child, I was like, what are we doing? Why are we working on this? I don't get it. Wow. But if you think about it, this is like when you're about to go to a dinner party and you know, whether it's business or otherwise, you know that there are people there and you have all that nervousness about, oh, I got to know what to talk about. And so you kind of prepare yourself and go, all right, what are the topics? Like, what's happening in politics that I need to be up on? Or if you know it's a bunch of sports people and you're not into sports and you're like, okay, it was just Stanley Cup, right? Right? You prepare yourself so that you can be a part of the conversation. Well, this is exactly what we're doing for our kids, is preparing them for the kinds of things that kids their age are going to talk about, which means that they need to know a little bit about video games. And they need to know a little bit about maybe iCarly or whatever it is that's in the realm of this period of time and what kids talk about. Because our kids have been a little bit isolated and been in therapy, or they've been in doctor's offices, or just home, right? So they didn't pick up, they're behind. They didn't pick up all the things that the other kids were soaking up while they were out in the world doing all the things they were doing, whatever it is that neurotypical children do. I don't know, I missed that with my child. But in any case, they prepare them with a list of things that are appropriate for where they live and what age they're at and the kinds of kids that they're going to be interacting with. It's really very fascinating. Then we get into all the things that help us to be able to make conversation. How do we initiate a conversation? How do you start a conversation with somebody? How do you end a conversation with somebody? How do you repair the conversation? Listening to conversation, physical context of conversation, conversational audience. Boy, this is one that's really important for our kids to realize, that there are some things that I can say to some people and I don't have to couch it because they already have knowledge of what it is I'm talking about. But other people, I would have to give a whole, paragraph of information to get them caught up, right? That I know that my friends that don't have kids, that I can't just launch into something that's happening on SpongeBob because they're going to look at me like I've completely lost my mind. I got to explain to them, okay, there's this show, SpongeBob. You may have heard of it. And on the show, they've got this friend that's a starfish and his name is Patrick and he has some human traits, right? I got to fill them in a little bit, as strange as that may seem. Well, our kids have to do that too, because sometimes they just launch into something. The other day, my son launched into something about something that had happened at school and the name of somebody at school to somebody who was visiting us for the first time. And I said to him, I said, hey, dude, seriously, does she know what happens at your school? Does she know who that person is? And he was like, oh, right. No, of course you don't. But he needed to be reminded of it, right? Well, when we teach conversational audience, we help to take that perspective. Transitioning topics of conversation, which is really difficult for some of our kids. We teach them that back and forth in language, and they know that that's important. They know that it's important at a certain length, but then you'll say, hey, so, today I want to talk about this, that, and the other thing. And they say, okay, we can talk about that. And then my son will launch into, did I tell you what else happened in this video game? Right? And he doesn't properly transition and realize when that topic is over, or know how to change topics when people are not interested in what he's talking about. Maintaining conversation, joining the conversation. Oh, this is one that most adults need. Honestly, whether they're on the spectrum or not, what it takes. I remember reading this lesson and going, oh my gosh, I had no idea all the things that are involved in joining a conversation. It's amazing. And then conversation, putting it all together. It's a lot. But when we chunk these down into these individual lessons, we can help our children to be able to be conversationally, social language savvy. What a wonderful thing, because, there are a lot of people who aren't on the spectrum who do not have that. And we see that this is a bankable skill, right? If you can have a conversation with people, that it's going to mean your life is going to function at a level that is certainly easier than if you're not able to hold your end of a conversation, right? You are more likely to have friends. You are more likely to have a great paying job. You're more likely to be able to excel at college and in academic settings. Maybe it isn't how it should be, but the truth of the matter is that it's like anything else, it's a skill, and if you have it in your arsenal, it will serve you well. So we don't have to teach everything to every child, but imagine with your individual child where your child does not have here. Imagine being able to plug those things in, and how far could your child fly if you could do that. Again, these lessons are available to you in the skills program. This is where we work on them, and I can vouch for the fact that it's truly fabulous. And I also want to remind you that right now they have the deal: buy 1 month and you get the rest of the summer for free. So 1 month you pay for, and then 2 months you get for free. So we're at the end of the show here, and I want to remind all of you that tomorrow is Friday, and on Fridays we have Dr. Jonathan Tarbox at 11 o'clock talking about research. Tomorrow, though, we're also going to have Evelyn Gould back in the studio because we just can't wait till next Wednesday to have her back in. We had somebody send a question yesterday that I answered a little bit from my perspective today, but we're going to have Evelyn Gould answer that as well tomorrow at 10 o'clock. So that's kind of what's happening tomorrow. We got some really interesting things in the hopper for next week. We've got a mom blogger from Denmark, I believe, that's going to be with us on Monday, which is a very exciting thing. So I want to remind you that as this show closes, the conversation goes on and on and on, and there are lots of different ways that you can get a hold of us. If you are watching us on any of the places that you can be watching us, you have the ability to get a hold of us via email, and there it is up on your screen for you. Please take the time to email us your thoughts, your questions, your concerns, and your opinions. We'd love to know what it is you think of the show. Do you like it? Is it useful to you? Are there things that you wish we were doing? Because we're here for you, and if there's stuff you wish we were doing, then we want to be doing that. So give us an email. We will respond in writing to your email, and also, if it's appropriate, cover it on the next available live show. It's not the only way to get a hold of us, though. You can phone us. If we're here, we're happy to patch you into the studio to have a conversation with myself, any of the experts that we talk to. If you're too shy to do that and you just want to talk to somebody because you want to ask a question, but you find it easier to talk than to type it, because I'm that way, then feel free to call. We have people standing by to take your phone calls. You can also Skype in with us if you're outgoing and you want to be on the show and you got camera capability. Even if you don't have camera capability, we're happy to Skype with you wherever you are in the world and have you become a part of the show. That's really what we would love to do. So there's always Skype. You can Facebook us, whether it's weekday, weekend. We check in on Facebook from time to time. Really enjoy our interaction with you there. And you can also tweet with us. We really are building our Twitter capabilities such as they are, and we are enjoying working with you in that way. Want to remind you too that there are lots of different ways to watch us. You can be watching us on Blip TV. You can be watching us on our own YouTube channel. We are also on iTunes. It's a free download on all of these different places, and you can also catch us on Ustream. So all of those ways are available to you. They're all free. When you call us, write us, and give us ideas or talk to us, I want you to know that that's all free as well. We want to give you this information, and we want to get information from you too, that if we're talking about something and you go, you know, I'd like to say that this is how I worked on this and this is how we got success. That's information that we all need, because none of us needs to be reinventing the wheel, right? Who has the time for that? So share with us your tips and tricks for things, whether it be on getting your child to eat a healthy diet or teaching your child prosody, how you got it done, how you're reinforcing your children. We really, really enjoy that. Again, I want to remind you, tomorrow, Dr. Jonathan Tarbox at 11 o'clock, and at 10 o'clock, Evelyn Gould will be with us to answer that question about how to deal with when one of the parents is getting frustrated and ultimately ending up in yelling. How can we deal with that and make it so it's not as aversive? We will be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. Until then, please give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.